Hello and welcome back to the Double Swing. We're still talking about the Budapest Major. Funnily enough, that hasn't finished. We have yet to crown Furia as major champions, releasing all that pent-up joy and passion the Brazilians have been slowly leaking out into people's DMs whenever they disrespect Fallen. But before we talk about those sorts of playoffs, we still have to get to the playoffs. Let's talk about this Stage 3 and this third Swiss in a row. It's going to be big, dramatic. We've got a lot of huge names and some teams already that should have been here have been sent home. Of course, that was in Stage 2. Just to recap what happened, that was the last episode. We had some interesting picks, and by interesting, I mean mostly terrible. Only 2 underdogs managed to make it through this stage, and only one of us picked a single one. I managed to get Parivision. Every other underdog pick missed. On the favourite side, Navi and Liquid picked by the live chat. Yes, you, the viewers at home, managed to go 2 for 2 on your favourites. YouM3 1 for 2 with FaZe and Astralis. Then I got 3D Max through just in the nick of time, right at the death. Although it did cost me my pick'ems, so you win some, you lose some. Unfortunately, in this case, I did lose some. YouM3, back-to-back bad weeks, has left you only with a 5-point lead. So across the next 2 episodes, there's a theoretical chance I can upset everything, bring it home, make the glorious comeback real. It is going to be tough, though, because this rate, making up 1 point per week, is not going to do it. It's not going to really convert into a lot of points.
Listen, even if I'm getting 5 or 6 teams going into the major, I have not picked them in the right places on my pick'ems, and I've not picked them right on the show either. So, honestly, I'm just throwing balls at the wall and hoping that things land, actually.
Yeah, you've been throwing them real hard, but they're not sticking. I don't know what's wrong with your concoction, but it's just not working out. To recap the scoring, this is still a play-in style event, so it doesn't matter if they're an underdog or a favourite. They're worth 1 point if they make it through to the playoffs. That's the scoring. That's the recap. Hawka, I'm sure that was boring, but now we get to talk to you. You chose to go third, but let's just get your opinion on the field first. Look at these teams. Is this one of the most loaded majors we've seen possibly ever in terms of excitement, firepower, talent? It's crazy, isn't it?
It feels pretty good, especially contrasting to Stage 1, which we were talking about, which, you know what I actually loved about Stage 1, because I think everyone agreed that the quality of Counter-Strike maybe wasn't great, but then I think it was Lake went on to Talking Counter, and he plays for M80, and he went on there and he was like, yeah, Stage 1 was kind of whack. And I'm like, bro, you're on M80. Like, I don't know if you can be out here saying it's that bad. Like, come on now. You're not that much better than this. Come on, let's be real. But
I think it's decent brand of CS. I talk your shit, young blood.
I like him. I like it. It's not like you're some top tier team. Let's calm down. Let's calm down, everybody. But yeah, I'm excited. I also think a couple of the underdog teams are a little, well, not fully underdog teams, but sort of dark horse teams are still flying under the radar a bit. I'm still a big G2 believer, which we'll get to. We'll get to at some point, I'm sure. But I like they mostly are just losing to the top teams. If you look, they're mostly losing to the top teams. So I think you've got some good sort of upset candidates. You'd probably say 3 main candidates for winning it in Furia, Vitality, and Falcons. Yeah, I think it's a good place to be. It's also kind of nice because I know a lot of people will say Furia are favorites and that they've been doing really well, but they're kind of number one, even though they haven't proven themselves at a major in the past, and they have some rookies and they have some issues there. Whereas you have Vitality, who are much more proven. So there's just so many storylines, and it's pretty much all you could ask for. I guess you could ask for Spirit to have a bit of a better time of things, but for the most part, the top players on the top teams feel like they're gonna have chances, and that's the main thing I want to see, really.
Yeah, look, I have to go first overall. Last episode it was YouM3. He ended up making some picks. The comment section did have some fun with that one, and unfortunately the comment section was right, which is always unfortunate when the real experts get defeated by the armchair experts who don't ever commit to their picks and just make little comments online. But hey, this time maybe it's my turn to embarrass myself. I'm going first overall. I'm not going to try and get sneaky cheeky with a little underdog pick. I'm going to start with a favourite, and I'm going to start with a team who genuinely inspire belief in me. Like, I think this team is absolutely one of the top dogs and a real threat. They're this close, margins away from being the best team in the world, despite everyone's vitriolic hatred of them, some of which is understandable, some of which, guys, just lay off Zonic. It's not that deep. Like, sure, the man gets to eat a lot, but Falcons are my favorites. They are going to be, if not winning this major, they're certainly going to be going through this stage. I already did my pick 'em. I took them 3-0. I felt very happy with them as well, being one of my 3-0 picks. They have firepower in droves. They've been looking stronger and stronger, playing better CS, but also just in terms of individuals meshing with each other, playing better. It's not just the tactics or little calls being right. It's just the interplay. Every little detail has been looking sharper, more refined, more in sync for this Falcons side. MOUZ has been in career best form just over the last couple of events, and over the course of the year, his downfall has been greatly over-exaggerated. A couple weak events here and there. In general, still fantastic. NiKo's capable of putting rounds together, despite the fact that he's taking a back seat, and Kyosuke's coming into his own as one of the best aggressive riflers on the planet. Again, it'd be such a strange conversation to have for Rookie of the Year, in terms of each individual player. There's so many different ones who could have won it if they weren't all in the same class. Instead, we kind of have to have this awkward sort of, Kyosuke is probably going to finish second despite dropping these peak-ass fragging numbers for the entire season as a rookie, just because there's another one doing even more and winning MVPs. But yeah, Falcons, this could be his chance. I think they're going really deep, and they're definitely a favorite in Stage 3 to just go sweeping through this field.
I mean, I do agree they're like very, very close to being a top class team and actually winning things. The problem that arises seems to be that there's no like maintenance of form. Like they do well at early stages of the tournament. They do well against sometimes even other elite teams at times, but then you just see them deteriorate into nothingness at some of these important big games. Like that final they played against Furia. Bro, I don't see Kyosuke. I don't see NiKo. Kixan had a actually phenomenal best of 5, but it was like MOUZ and Kixan versus the world. And I know that's not supposed to be how it goes. I know it's something I'm actually starting to respect Kixan more and more as sort of a big game player in a respects, because I've actually seen him in deep playoff games have these massive performances. But I don't know what happens to the Falcons, and I'm not sure that they understand it either. Because I agree with you. MOUZ is the form deterioration has been greatly exaggerated. He is as well recovering to like elite caliber, but he needs teammates, and I don't think it is a one more stars thing that everyone talks about. Like, let's get rid of Kixan or get rid of Tessus, bring in Bit or Frozen or something. They don't need that. They just need to figure out how they're actually going to compose rounds in a more structured way. Because, listen, I get tired of looking at the Falcons and thinking they cannot put together a tactical round. So many of it is just like default scramble mid rounds that, yes, your players are good enough that they can pull through it in those types of moments. But I just want to see a couple of set pieces that they can use and pull out of the pocket that doesn't matter whether your stars are active in that moment. And then I'm there. I think Falcons can get to the next step.
Yeah, I think on the Falcons thing, I honestly think the more and more I watch Kixan, I almost am starting to be like, is he going to be the next, this generation's Carrigan almost? And I know that's a very high bar, but they do play like quite defaulty a lot. And I think we're starting to get some of the big game performances you'd occasionally get from a Carrigan. I think you're starting to get him actually manage a lot of superstars very well, which I think a lot of in-game leaders would have been eaten up by. So I'm really impressed by Kixan. And I remember before he got picked up, I always felt like he was going to have that ability. I'd seen in some like of the big major games before that he was capable of this sort of mid-round calling style. And I think he's getting pretty good at that. I still think he's not quite experienced enough that if a game goes like really deep, I think you actually see them struggle sometimes in an overtime, for example. So that's the one thing I don't think he has compared to like a Carrigan. So yeah, the Carrigan comparison, it's kind of styles right now, and he's not fully there. But I think it's like kind of the biggest similarity in a weird way. I also think, I'm with you guys, the MOUZ thing, I can't believe people are making Reddit threads saying, like, is MOUZ actually a choker? We need to talk about this guy. Like, what are we doing? Like, he had a bit of bad form for a little bit, and now he's back and incredible, and probably the opposite of a choker, because he normally steps up in big moments. Yeah, I think the Chengdu final was weird because Kixan had to play so well. Everyone there was talking about NiKo, and NiKo was really bad in that final. And if I'm NiKo, I am spending this entire offseason grinding my ass off because, yes, this should be your chance to finally prove you can win a major and that you have that on your record, because otherwise you might go down like a Guardian or someone who never got the flowers he deserved. I do think my issue with this team is I think Nico, I wouldn't be surprised if he does step it up. I do think Kioske is the big question mark for me, because some of these big games, I do see him do quite well, but I do feel like sometimes, especially against the top teams, I just think his decision-making, and sometimes he just gets like a bit confused, especially against Furia. I feel like I noticed this because Furia, I feel like, have a lot of tricks, and I do think Kioske's aim is very good, but he is just so raw that I think sometimes you kind of get him like losing track of what's going on, especially when it is so defaulty. It's kind of reliant on him feeling that out, and I don't think he always has that. And then also, I sometimes feel like TSS for me is a little bit on choke watch sometimes, but it kind of comes with his play style. Like he can be a bit of a risky player. So yeah, I don't think TSS is like a massive problem. It's just something I'm keeping an eye on. But I think it is the Kioske one, because you want him to be a star for this team to do well. Yeah, they should definitely make it through this stage. Although the opening game against Bait, listen, we've seen it before. We've seen them lose to Bait before. Last major, you know.
Yeah. Last major, yeah. I don't mind. I mean, I've looked through the opening matchups. I've picked my upsets, basically. I think that there's two games that I think look so juicy and ready for an upset that they're almost guaranteed. Like, I feel bad that I'm going to go bet on them and make money. You know, there's a couple that I like that. I don't think this is one of them, Falcons Bait, really. But yeah, just to touch on all that, all those negatives. And remember, this is the part where I usually address the crowd. It's like, all those negatives you heard, and they're this close from winning multiple titles. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like this, despite everything else potentially being wrong. Maybe they don't have the set plays Yumi loves. Maybe, yeah, Hawka's right. There are certain players who are on choke watch. They choke all the time. Despite all that, they took Furia to 4 maps, double overtimes, back-to-back overtimes, not necessarily multiple sets of overtime, to close out the series. This is a legit title contending team who have, over the course of this, like sort of last 3 or 4 events, just absolutely dominated everyone who's not basically the title winner of that event. Like, they've just win straight 2-0 series over and over and over again. So yes, the small fry like Bait, as much as I love NPL, big Kensizor fan, loving the adjustments to their styles to make him, you know, a more realistic star fragger, not just a guy carrying, you know, Atlas-esque the entire weight of the world. They're still going to get absolutely smushed. Like, they're just going to be a bug on the windshield. This team should cruise through to playoffs. Our next pick, Yumi. You have a lot of places you can go. You've liked some odd picks in the past on this show. Anything you want to try here?
Nah, I'm just not going to fuck around. I'm picking Furia. I bought into this team before they started playing good, and just because I thought it was good GMing. Like, I love the angle of bringing in an up-and-coming AWPer and refining him and seeing if we could actually make an international team with someone like Molodoy. And he turns out to be good. Like, that's good GMing. If it didn't work out, there are many places they could have sold Molodoy off to that would have benefited from his sort of aggressive brand of AWPing. And also the resurgence of Yakindar. Like, he was always the piece I undervalued the most. And it's just cool that they play like good tactical, like conditioned styled Counter-Strike. Like, it's a little reminiscent of older metas, but they have this, they use previous matchups as conditioning. Like, they're almost always like hammering home a tendency, and then they get to these bigger games and then they suddenly divert, and it's really like, it's cool to watch that they're playing in that way. Obviously, they have to win their games for that conditioning to necessarily work, but they are winning those games and they're squeaking through in even these like close overtime games against elite level teams as well. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like Furia, whether it's Keserato Yuri and, you know, the legacy of Fallen, whether it's Yakindar turning his career around and Molodoy getting his start. I think there's so many fun storylines just internally for Furia that it makes it a good time to be, one, a Brazilian fan, but even just like a fan of Counter-Strike and some of these individual playing careers. Furia play not even just a fun brand of Counter-Strike, but yeah, if you're a fan of any of these players, you're eating good right now.
Yeah, you really are. Hawka, look, we've seen this Furia side win 3 straight events. I mean, Thunderpick maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but hey, Chengdu and Blast Rivals featuring star-studded lineups, star-studded casts. It feels like they've really dominated this season. How confident are you in it continuing? I mean, I've avoided them for my own reasons that I'll get to later, but for you, how confident are you in Furia coming into this event as favourites for the major? Like, they're looking strong?
Yeah, I think they should be fine through this stage, although it is interesting that now it feels like they are favourites. That could feel different for some of these players. That could be interesting. I still think they should be okay. I mean, they also have that opening matchup against Na'Vi, which, like, that's not an easy opening match. Yeah, it's definitely losable. And then if you go down 0-1 and you feel like your favorites, who knows? But realistically, they should be fine making it through. I think that one of the things that was really underestimated was when we saw Cadian switch to rifling, he was just so bad. I couldn't actually believe it. And Fallen's actually fine. Fallen is fine as a rifler. And that's quite nice. He's not going to put up massive numbers or anything. But he also, I think, can almost use himself more. Like, when you're an AWPer, you kind of have a responsibility to position yourself well and get kills and lock down areas. As a rifler, you have way more of an ability to make these aggressive moves and try and catch people out. And we kind of know Fallen's always had that ability to read people quite well. And I think we're seeing occasionally now, he will just get in behind people. And I think it's gone a bit underrated that he can kind of just outposition people because, yeah, his actual raw aim is not going to be anything to write home about. But you see him sometimes just catch people out, and you still see him pull out these random bullshit rounds where you're like, Fallen, I didn't think you were capable of that. And it used to be, I thought, because he had the AWP and he would just land these 2 shots where you're like, wow, how did he do that? But sometimes he's winning like 1v2s with the rifle, and I'm like, okay. And it's always when they need it most. For some reason, Fallen seems capable. So that's been a nice X factor to have. And yeah, you obviously have the resurgence of your Kindar. I still, there's part of me that feels like these pickups, I almost don't want to give credit. I'm like, there's part of me that's like, you can't have seen this coming. There's no way you expected this to be this good.
It's more justified than picking up Junior. You know, they took the risk before, and they were like, you know what, these actually could be better, guys. Let's give it another shot.
Yeah. But credit for it working out. Yeah, Yakindar, you can just see he's so much more confident, taking all the fights. It's so cool to see because I think on Liquid, he was still doing that. It's just they didn't really follow it up a lot of the time, and the spacing would be so off, and you can see how that would make him lose confidence massively. And as soon as this team is fairly well structured, it works. And yeah, Fallen, just his calling is really good. They always have little tricks. I think at the next stage, we've got to see how Molodoi does under the pressure of being a favorite. We saw him at the previous major struggle in the playoffs. He does look like he's more up for the big games now, and he's kind of got that swagger about him. But sometimes with Molodoi, I just almost don't understand. He seems to duel the opposing AWPer way more often than any other AWPer I see, and just win the fight really quickly in a fight that it doesn't look like he should win, which is just crazy. Like, he is that quick. So yeah, I think Furia should be good in this stage. I don't know if I'd have them winning the major, but for this stage, they're obviously a pick to make it.
It's actually something I'd love to see a full head-to-head reaction time test between Molodoi and some of the other elite AWPers, because I actually think Molodoi could be faster, but may just miss more shots. Like that was the thing going into that. I think it was the Blast Rivals, or it was the Blast Finals, where Molodoi was just missing a lot, and then once it's like brain calibrated, all of a sudden all those fast reactions and those fast flicks were hitting, and then there was kind of nothing you could, like, once he got adjusted, he couldn't be stopped.
Yeah, no, he wins the grand final, the head-to-head in AWP kills against Muncie 12-4, but you're right, it did take him a second. Like, especially on map by map seems to also reset a little bit, and then suddenly late round you needed a bullshit miracle. Here he comes, through a smoke, triple kill, insane flick after insane flick. So yeah, I agree with everything you've said about Furia. For me, they've been the best team in a variety of different ways. You know, they've looked really sound structurally, they have really great individuals, and quite importantly, they just know how to win. Winning is a skill, and they just have it. And, you know, you call it clutch, you call it that just plot armor, whatever you want to refer it to as. They have been able to pull out close game after close game, OT after OT, big clutch after big clutch. The reason I didn't lead with them, the reason I don't have them 3-0 in my pick'ems, they've shown some frailty in groups. They've shown an ability to come into a game where an opponent is weaker than them, is clearly like below their standard, and, you know, not necessarily impress. You know, they've dropped series to MOUZ, they've dropped maps to you know, one-off teams that are just a bit iffy. You know, they lost a map to Pain in an opening matchup, and I don't care for it's a domestic matchup thing. They don't play domestic play anymore, so please forget it. They're also 40% not Brazilian. So for me, the Furia problem isn't so much that I don't think they're going through. They're definitely going through. It may cost someone dearly if one of our top competitors, one of our top dogs, ends up in an unfortunate sort of 1-2 or 2-2 game with them. But I do think Furia they look ready to be upset by Na'Vi in that opening best of one. You know, Na'Vi really confident. They love the way they're looking in terms of their map pool. I watched the games back when they were in stage 2, and I'm like, damn, they just look better at all the things they like to do. Like, that version of Na'Vi is going to be really difficult for Furia to play against. I think they lose that opening BO1, and then after that, the matchups get a bit crazy, get a bit wild. I've run the sims. It's all over the shop. There's a chance they face, like, MOUZ in a 1-1. Come on, that's the sort of best one you lose again. That's why I'm talking about them 1-2. It's not to, you know, detract from them. I think if they make it to the grand final, they win the major. You know, I have them as the favourite for the major. I just think in the Swiss, I'm more comfortable with a noob stomper like Falcons, just to crush, you know, all the bugs in their way, and Furia maybe, you know, slip up on a cicada somewhere. You know, that's maybe the issue I have with them. But Lord, they've been great. They've been glorious. If they win this major, we start having all our bickering and petty arguments about, you know, eras and how do we define them, and do Furia have an era? Would Vitality then no longer have? You know, it all get, you know, back to that silliness.
Also, in a world where Aurora goes 0-3 or like just bombs out rather from a 3-0 position, if that happens to Furia, I might lose my shit. Actually, this major has been already a little unpredictable in terms of like how teams have come in form wise, and if it continues to be that way, man, CS2 majors are just a little different. Is all I'm gonna say.
They are. The lights are so bright, aren't they? Like, it's just, sure, some teams look destined to win, come in and do, but more often than not, it's just like, this team's playing great, and then, you know, just the Vietnam memes of just pure shell shock.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know yet.
Okay, Hawka, we're over to you for back-to-back picks. You chose to go third. This is the reason why. A bit of strategy, a bit of game theory, I guess. Choosing to go third, getting the double picks. Who do you like the look of?
To be fair, one of the reasons I did this is because I think we all have Furia, Falcons, and Vitality as like the clear top 3 teams. And yeah, I've got to take Vitality here. And honestly, I might have taken Vitality first. So I'm happy with this. I'm very happy with this. I just think Vitality have not been at their best recently, and their floor is still just so high. Like, I've watched some of their games recently, and I've been like, this doesn't look like the Vitality I know. The team play looks a bit dodgy. The cohesion looks off. And they still only really lose against Falcons, Furia. I think they lost once against MOUZ in a group stage, but MOUZ in a group stage are a different MOUZ, as we sometimes know. So, yeah, they have been definitely capable of dropping maps against some of these lower-ranked teams. Like, they dropped a map against Tyloo at that Blast Rivals. So, I don't think they've looked at their best. And yet still, they've been able to grind out the wins, which I think is just what this team does. I think the big one for me is that Rops has looked sometimes like, it's almost like he's gone back a little bit to playing a little like too safe at times. And he's gone back to that sort of, that FaZe style Rops we saw for a bit, where he was just doing these massive lurks and he was always holding flanks. And it just feels like he's not fully dialed in. And I think, I can't remember who it was that made this point, but someone made the point that they feel like Rops is just someone who trusts his instinct and his brain fully. And sometimes that makes him look really dumb. Like, he's going to be holding for a lurk that's never there. And I actually think against Furia, that's one of the issues they have, is that Furia do these lurks sometimes. They do them just often enough, and they do all this weird tactical stuff that I feel like it throws Rops off sometimes, actually. But I expect that if this cohesion stuff is fixed, which I think it will be, I think Vitality will be very hungry coming into this major. And honestly, that's been the main thing for me, is just at times the timing looks off between them. I think Apex's calling has still actually been good. I think it's been fine. And we've even heard him say in some of the post-game interviews, like he's annoyed at how the team played, and he's annoyed that players are making mistakes, and they're still winning games. Like he comes away from these games, and if you heard the way he was talking, you would imagine that Vitality played terribly and barely won. But it's the opposite. It's like their floor is just so high and his standards are so high that they still look very good.
Well,
so yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. If they want to have the era that everyone's talking about, then they need to hold themselves to that high standard. Like, even if they're going to be playing good Counter-Strike, they need to hold to that standard. And I think the cool thing is that it does seem like the calling is good enough, but you're seeing that sort of lack of killer instinct on a lot of players. Whether that's, MOUZ, whether that's Rops, sometimes Flamesy seems to hesitate in a couple of moments, and ZywOo is not a crowbar. He's kind of a star that pushes you to the finish. He's not one that gets you through the door in the first place. So there does seem like there's hesitation. I think that's the biggest thing that I notice, is that outside of the Rops conversation, which I fully agree with, there is just a lack of that extra punch or the jump on that piece of util or a reload that you hear. It seems like there's that sort of fear of failure, and then they kick into like, I should have done this thing, and then they do it like almost like 2 seconds too late.
Yeah, that's happening a bit for sure. I do think also ZywOo, in a weird way, it feels like he almost has been a bit more active recently, because I think he realized the team is not doing that well, and he's having to have these bigger carry performances. But I just have faith that they'll turn it around, especially because I think Furia would have been grinding for these previous events quite heavily, because they were getting the team up to speed and they didn't know that they'd be in this sort of position to win tournaments. For Vitality, they always knew the major was the aim, realistically. They would have been grinding for these tournaments, obviously, but I do think it's different preparing for the major. And I do think that there will be something different about them. I think they would have completely locked in practice-wise. And again, the fact that it's the cohesion that was off, that fills me with promise, because I think that is something they can pretty quickly fix. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, Vitality for the first 6 months of the year, one little misstep aside, were the too perfect team. Like, it was just, everything was perfect. Like the strats, the tactics, the calling, perfect. The nade usage, the flashbangs, perfect. The individuals, borderline perfect. And now we look at them and, all those little things have gone slightly off. The Rops is too passive, isn't impactful enough, doesn't win enough rounds for them. I mean, Flamesy's the one exception, but Flamesy can do no wrong. ZywOo, it's not that he's not AWPing anymore. He never really was doing that T-side AWP thing. It's just that now it seems like he's more dependent on his rifle, and his AWP just doesn't ring in quite the same sort of fashion. Like, it doesn't hit the same highs. They're still going to be a threat. And coming in with this prep, as you mentioned, their focus would be major-centric. I think there's a strong chance they look the best they've looked all season, and they have already won a title this season. Like, there is a very real chance that Vitality are going to emerge as champions here. I just think that I need to see it. I really need to see it, because what they've been before this major has been really good, excellent, but not runaway successes. And if they're not going to have the depth of insane talent, overpowering talent that Falcons have, they're not going to have all the details cleaned up and all the perfect role players the way Furia do, then they need to get all those other things right, and they haven't quite, and that's leaving me just a little bit doubtful about Vitality. I still have them going through. I'm still very confident in them to manage to triumph over the likes of, well, they open up with a FaZe best of 1, which I think is actually going to be very winnable.
It's also very losable, I would say.
Depending, yes. If Frozen and Twist decide to be the two best players on the server, and Jacob's like, yo, what up? It's me, Neo 2, then yeah, sure, there's a chance. But more likely than not, that's a win.
FaZe have been improving, like, actively from stage 1 to stage 2. Like, if they... We're seeing some of those teams that have gotten those reps in previous stages actually, come in a bit more warm, and I think that's always been the case at majors, right? So
it's a complicated thing to balance, like the value of having warmed up versus the value of having watched and all that other stuff. But yeah, I see them winning that opening best of 1. It's just a question of those like big sort of challenging BO3s towards the end of the group stage, where maybe the little details cost them. Still make playoffs, still going to be good, still a solid pick. But I'm just more confident in Falcons and Furia for 2 very different reasons. Hawka, you have another pick. You still got a favorite left to select. You also got 2 underdogs you could go and choose. Who do you think is the most worthy of your attention?
I think I'm going to go underdog.
Okay.
But I look at the underdogs. I don't know how many of them I really like. And people are going to call me crazy for this. All right, Liquid are not in my thinking right now, based on some of the other teams. And FaZe, I don't think are really in my thinking, honestly. I know that they made it through that previous stage looking good, but even though the other underdogs don't look great, we'll get into it when someone picks FaZe. I'm not going with them, mate. I'm going with Bait. The Bait boys are doing it. Okay, here's the big thing for me with Bait. Okay, the map pool now. I think there are enough maps that you can pug, and this team they kind of do pug. Okay, and they make some mistakes, but their Mirage has been very, very good. Ancient is a pretty loose map you can play. And the big one for me, I was always thinking, surely this team should be pretty good at Dust 2. And for some reason, throughout this season, they weren't good at Dust 2. And then, to qualify, they beat 3D Max on it very convincingly. They beat Legacy on it earlier. And that already just gives you a 3-map pool that is very dangerous. And as long as a team bans one of the other maps, you're actually going to get onto some dangerous maps that they can kind of just frag on. And they're even like capable in Inferno as well. They're even capable in Inferno. I just think the map pool really helps them, but also there's always like one team that makes a random run, okay? There's always one team. And these guys, like, they at times just take it in turns to carry maps to a ridiculous extent. Like in that the Dust 2 decider against 3D Max, Kenzizor dropped like a 2.06 rating. In the map before, MPL dropped like a 2.0 rating. Like it was crazy. It was crazy how they were able to do that. They have so much raw talent on this team. They can take it in turns. I could easily see them just getting some best of 1 upsets to put them in a good position. And then it kind of could come down to whatever their 2-2 game might be, or whatever their 2-1 game might be, where they have a chance to qualify. But I think the other big one is that leading into this tournament, for some reason, Headtrick just was not playing well. I don't know what was happening. He was just not very good. He stepped it up, and I think it just gives them such a better baseline to work with when they have an AWPer online. It changes this team a lot, because if you are playing quite loose, I think you need that. You need to have that AWPer, and he is doing way better now. And you obviously have the MPL and Kenzizor, who's been great. But yeah, it's just the raw talent on this roster, and I don't think tactically they do anything crazy, but I think it's just fallen in a nice spot for them where I do believe in them. The only question is, are they going to have experience issues at this stage? But I think they can overcome it. I just think that whenever I see them, they seem like they do just kind of lock in. And I don't want to say, I almost feel like because they don't seem like a team that are like crazy tactical or crazy thinking, I always feel like that helps them sometimes. I feel like they can kind of just be like, let's just fight, like fuck it, let's just get in the dirt and fight. And in a weird way, sometimes that works for underdogs. Like I think back to the Bad News Eagles squad and stuff. Like they were just guys that fought together and had good team play. And sometimes when the pressure's on, it's kind of easier to stick with that style compared to trying to be super intricate. So yeah, I'm going with Bait, which I know is probably a wild pick, but I believe in the Bait boys.
Yeah, they're not... I mean, that game that they played against Na'Vi, you do see them get exposed for that lack of tactical depth.
I think Na'Vi are especially bad matchup to like show it, where you're like...
Yeah. Ooh, I think the positive to draw from them from stage 2 was that they didn't just go in with like linear philosophy. They didn't go with, okay, we're going to take this and then immediately barrel into like take as much space as possible. They did start to express this sort of start-stop, which actually does allow for things like your AWPer to have a bit more success. You know, they played against teams that were fairly re-aggressive. They'll lose areas or they'll lose sound and they'll actually hunt for information. I think that's where we saw most of some of that extra impact from Headtrick that maybe was absent in some of the previous games. I think that is probably more the Alex 666 calling change, just because NPL did seem like it was sort of his way, and if he didn't have a feel for the game was kind of fucked. But now it seems like he can provide a little bit more context, maybe give some different perspective, and I think they're punishing more mistakes and winning games because of that, as opposed to necessarily putting the ball into their own court winning off of, they have a couple like fast exec type plays that they pull out from every now and again, and it does win them some rounds. But I'd say in general they're more a punishment type of team to teams that aren't willing to just sit on bomb sites and run with zero information, which is most of the teams at this kind of leg of the tournament. But they're just going to aim a lot better than the teams that Bait have beaten.
Yeah, I wish I could pick them, but YouM3, we have a storied history with Bait. We've talked about them, picked them on shows. They've been an underdog darling for a long time. They've got the talent to match up with certain teams, and yes, it gets scrappy. Yes, they drag teams into the mud, but hey, that's, as you stated, perfectly reasonable. If you're the underdog team, you want the fight in the mud. You want that game, it's raining, the star player's boots stuck. That's the kind of game you want when you're an underdog. My problem is here, I just feel like they're finally going to let us down the way they always do. There's always that element of Bait have this mental collapse coming, and eventually it's just going to bite you in the ass. They're just inexperienced. There are a lot of rookies. I mean, Alex, he's taken over calling, and that's been an improvement. MPL as a caller always kind of confused and annoyed me, because I'm like, you mean the guy who's alone outside on Nuke is somehow supposed to be the hub for the comms, and the guy who's processing info? Like, he hasn't a fucking clue what's going on. Like, he's got his own crosshair to stare at. He's got like 3 different dudes to worry about in terms of killing. He's not doing all that.
Karrigan plays the same spot, so
and he sucks at it. Not gonna lie, he's just not a good alto player on Nuke. So yeah. I just don't like. I didn't like the fit in a lot of ways for MPL as the caller. So yes, the fact that it's now changed up, they look better, it's improved, and I think that's why we see them here at this stage, ready to potentially, for a lot of people, upset the odds. Take that opening best of 1 upset against Falcons. A lot of people are expecting that to happen. I'm not, but this is the kind of place where we expect them to be. It's just when they get to the 2-2, it's like, oh, 2-2's winnable, and where have Bait gone? So like, where? No, okay, that's usually been the disappointment. So yeah, I'm gonna stick to my my doubts. Just gonna be a bit pessimistic. They have multiple prospects on that team that I've profiled, that I've been a big fan of. I've just been let down too many times to believe again. Like, for me, this is a fantastic place to have reached. The group stage of the real major, not stage 1 and 2, the extended qualifier. They made it this far. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. They should kick on. Hopefully one day, Na'Vi goes full Ukrainian again and picks up the core of this team, or something else, some kind of upgrade for them, or a different roster if they can provide it. But for now, this is pretty much the ceiling, I think, for this roster. It's making this stage, unfortunately, missing out, repeat, year after year, major after major. YouM3, now we've done the role reversal and I've been super pessimistic, it's time for your optimism. You've got a pick. You've got both underdogs open. You've got a favourite left to select as well. Who do you like the look of?
I'm just going to pick... I'm feeling the vibes. I'm feeling positive about the vibes. I'm going with FaZe in the underdogs. They've been making active improvements, and I think they're starting to align with my vision of how this roster should have worked, given the fact they have Jacob. Like, there are a couple of maps, Dust 2 was definitely the most notable, where Jacob was actually put in some of his similar old roles that he had coming out of Apogee, and the guy was frying, like, actually hitting incredible shots. And that's going to benefit them a lot, just having another potential threat, like whether or not you see much stock in someone like Brokey or Karrigan in his calling. Like, you have Frozen and Twist most of the time. They've always just needed that third man to step into the limelight, and Jacob or Brokey, it'll do. Brokey had some dismal games, but he also had a couple of games where he actually was going for a lot of these opening attempts and finding success, or finding a tag, and finding he was invoking presence on the map that was far more than just being the new 4750 decoy. That is to an extent how Brokey is at times on in these games, but it does seem like they're running in with a little bit of swagger into this stage, and I do just believe they're going to cause a little bit of a ruckus still in stage 3, whether or not that is that the opening matchup that they have against Vitality with a little bit of that stage 2 momentum, or whether or not it's going to be against teams that just genuinely shouldn't be this high, like Imperial, Passion U. Like, there's so many other teams that are just weaker and don't have that same level of star power that I think FaZe will probably just squeak through, if I'm being frank.
Yeah, well, look, Hawka, Brokey's been dreadful, hasn't he? That's not an exaggeration. And at this major, across the 2 stages he's played, he has 53.8% of maps with a 1+ rating, which for an AWPer, still shit, but a noticeable upgrade. How do you feel about this team overall coming into this? Do you think they've got an AWPer to be afraid of, or is it still just rifle-centric?
I mean, I think, was it Carrigan was saying Brokey was ill or something? I don't know how ill he was.
Everyone's always ill when they shit the bed at the major, aren't they? Everyone's always sick.
Oh yeah, I had a cold like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, wristitis. It just doesn't.
Oh man. Yeah, no. Yeah, I do think Brokey's been bad, and I think basically the big question is just the Jacob one. Like, if you believe in Jacob, that they can do something. I just felt like in the games I saw against Aurora, for example, where he did well, even against NIP, I kind of felt like these teams were making mistakes and were just giving way too many aim fights. And I think there were 2 things happening. Firstly, Jacob's aim is better than I was giving him credit for. Up until this point, I'd never really seen his aim be that good. So he did step up there. Secondly, though, I just think that these teams they were playing against, there was like a 1v2 where Aurora literally just like gave him the fights on Dust. Like, they had the B site and they just fought him one by one, and he just sat there and waited for them to peek him. But I still think whenever there's anything more going on in the round, Jacob still struggles. There's a chance that this previous stage has got him enough confidence, and if that's happened, I would love to see it. But especially in games where he's tasked with doing more than just aiming at people, you just see him hesitate at the wrong time, feel like he has to trade when he shouldn't try and peek to trade. Like, it almost feels like he overthinks every situation where he has to make a decision, and he just seems to make the wrong one so often. And I don't blame him for that, because he's very inexperienced. I think this was too early of a call up to FaZe, and it's why I hope it does work out. But I think if he's not online, to me, it's so hard to see this team really making it through, because then you are just relying on Twist and Frozen solely. And I know those guys are good, but I don't think that alone would be enough, especially because I still felt like they are playing really loose. They're playing like so loose.
Super loose.
It's ridiculous. And I feel like at this stage, there should be enough teams that can punish that are just going to eat that up, because even someone like Frozen, at times I feel like the team is so loose that you see him have these bad games where I'm like, oh, why is Frozen doing badly? And it's not often, but it's occasionally. And then I look back at it and I'm like, oh, there were just like these fundamental things that meant you didn't really get good fights. Like your protocols for banana control weren't actually that good, and you were just kind of trying to force it. And it's stuff like that makes me worry. Obviously, there is just the FaZe factor though, where they can just clutch up, and they have that experience level, and they have Carrigan, who's great at that. So if they can drag teams deep, then they always have a chance. So I totally understand the pick. I just think for me, at this stage, with the quality of the other teams, I feel like they are just that bit too loose. And I feel like Jacob is going to go back down to the level that I expect from him, which is not that good, sadly.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough tier or like elite tier caliber on the roster to make this hyper loose, dynamic mid-rounding type of thing work. I'm with you. I think, on the Jacob conversation, when he first joined the roster, I was actually very sympathetic, because it seemed like his decision making was good, but his nervousness was kind of affecting his aim. He was taking good swings, he was taking good fights, and then just losing duels. And it was like, okay, it'll take him some time, but he'll get there. Because I saw how good his aim was on Apogee. He's in new roles. I understand. Now it seemed like, because of all the trauma of good decision, bad aim, now it seems like he has no decision tree anymore. It's like he's simplified to the nth degree, where just focus on my aim, just kill the guy in front of me, and that's it. And yeah, it has affected some of his decision making and his reactability to what's happening in the round. So I agree with you on those fronts. But I do think that having the added confidence of, okay, I've made the right decision, my aim worked as well against some of these teams that probably on paper hit harder than I do, like that is a test of mettle, I think, to Jacob. And I think it's also going to change some of the dynamic of how FaZe utilize him. I think that's really where I'm hammering it home, because I saw Twist take more opening fights than Jacob, where before Jacob was kind of just thrown to the wolves with Karrigan as the front of the pack. Now Twist is taking some of those responsibilities. Don't know if it's necessarily always because they want to do that or if it's a bit more spawn based, but they are starting to use other tools instead of just saying, hey, you're our hard entry and you have to get us into the round. And that's just not something that Jacob ever did before. So it's like, why is he on the roster if that's how you're going to use him?
I do want to quickly say, okay, because they went 3-0, but the teams they beat are Aurora, who are known for shitting themselves, and NIP, who also shit themselves massively at this stage. That's why I'm like, okay, I don't know about this. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been for this season the FaZe believer since they acquired Twists. You know, I just put 2 and 2 as like, I'm the firepower guy, I'm the aim guy. You've just got the 2 most informed riflers of the year, like not necessarily the best, obviously Donk is the best, but in terms of relative to their careers, this is Twist and Frozen's best years, like especially in the moment as well. They're in such insane form. I was like, this can work. And I watched them beat NIP. And how loose can you play? Well, there is no limit. Like FaZe were like giving, I don't know, I'm about to use the most absurd comparison that I should never utterly, like I didn't want to utter these words, but they've gone full Bonnie Blue. Like, it is unreal how loose this team is. Like, I was just watching POVs and I'm just like, oh, there's a bunch of guys, primarily Twist and Frozen, just kind of wandering around, just doing whatever the hell comes to mind. Like, Frozen's just like, oh, look, some space, just walks out, kills 2 guys. And I'm like, this isn't a strategy. This isn't a plan. This is just dudes doing stuff. And it worked in that stage. And you're right, some of the opposition helped. Like NIP, game got close. Some of the protocols, some of the checks, some of that clutch, just doing the correct basic things. They're fumbling util, they're looking in the wrong spots. They got some opportunities to shine. And in that sense, I still want to believe in FaZe. I think I have them going out like 2-3 or playing a 2-2 game with G2, which I was like, I can't even pick. Like, that's sort of where I had the Sims ending up. But I do feel like in terms of their strat book, it has been mostly just set on fire, thrown out the window, and then we're just going to pray. And Jacob, there's a reason he looked lost before. Like, he's trying to make the right reads. Now he's just trying to aim shots. Like, he's just trying to hit something. He's not got the experience, the wisdom to play this style of play. And look, even if he was a bum and didn't know what to do, felt lost, you'd at least have Brokey if this was like 2 years ago. But you don't. Brokey's a separate disaster who just can't seem to figure himself out on a map-by-map basis. Like, he's just inconsistent. He's just a nightmare to play with. They are theoretically dangerous. But in practice, I feel like they're just going to fall a bit too short on this one.
All I will say as well is that, listen, watching some of these Brokey games, it looks like your coach or your analyst is standing in at times. Like, not just from a mechanics point of view, like from a decision-making point of view. It's like, I don't trust myself to hit this shot, or I don't trust myself to do anything effectively. I'm just going to stay alive and just run away. Like, I saw so many moments like that from Brokey where before his bravado and his confidence would just be, I could take another fight. Yeah, fuck it. Like, let's go. And that's where some of the craziest Brokey clips come from. Instead, now it's just like, bro has lost confidence in himself to make some of these plays. Like, how is anyone else from the outside supposed to look at that and think, yeah, Brokey's my AWPer. This will work.
Dude, yeah, like that crazy. Aurora game was 13-10, and Brokey's stat line was 5 kills, 9 deaths. Like, he was basically not involved in any of the game. That's what that says.
Blood was doing cardio type shit. Like, he was not playing. Yeah, especially at some of these teams they're going to play, though. That's going to be a problem that rears its head. Like, against teams with aimers where he knows, like, he's got to hit a shot or he's going to get banged. I think that's going to play on him.
Even against NIP, like, his CT side on Nuke, oh my god. Like, I think he had 6 kills the whole CT side, and I was just seeing this guy full run every time. Like, he took like the first 4 tries in a fight and was like, I guess it's just one of those games. I'm just gonna play my life and try and pull them into the B bomb site somehow. It's
wait.
Absurd.
They played 13 rounds of CT side against NIP on Nuke, right? I checked the numbers. He ended 6-5.
Yeah,
they lost 7-6 in that sort of like set of rounds. He just, what's he doing?
Pacifist. He was a pacifist.
Where's man gone? He's just lost. No, yeah, the Brokey experience has been, in the past, a combination of electrifying and frustrating. Right now, it's just a bit sad. It's just a bit sad, and they needed the best version of him. But hey, it could re-emerge. If he just goes back to being inconsistent, he can always pop off again. That's been a part of my belief. Anything's possible. Anything is possible. Right. I now have the daunting task of making back-to-back picks. I'm going to start with a favorite, because I feel like I can be sensible. Pretty clinical, pretty easy. Just pick MOUZ. What are we doing? It's a group stage. They're the best team in the world. It's a group stage. Like, MOUZ are just the best team in the world. That's how it works. They are going to struggle when it comes to the playoffs. I don't need to care about that. I just need to look at this stage. And look, the last group stage they played, they beat Vitality, FaZe, and Furia. What a ridiculous portfolio to start off with. Before that at Pro League, they dropped one series to Falcons. Otherwise, that was everything. They only lost to Falcons at that entire event. And it goes on like that back and back through time. They just have these big wins over top teams in the groups. They're able to look imperious, like the best team in the world, and then it comes to the playoffs and, everything just kind of crumbles. But this MOUZ side, it is a strange situation to talk about them, because when I make cases like, Xertion's actually a fantastic player in this way and that way. Spinks, honestly, one of the best sort of flexible star players, can be a bit aggressive, can be more passive, can clutch, can close, can trade. You look at their stats for the year, and because they've played so many huge playoff series that they've either won by the skin of their teeth or lost in such disappointing fashion, their numbers look so mediocre. It's going to be such a tough case to make to people at the end of the year that the 103 rated Xertion or the 109 rated Spinks actually did have a better year than the 126 rated Twists. It's going to be a real tough case. It's going to be one of those HLTV forums, all up in flames, all caps sort of moments. But this is their moment to shine. When you look at those pre-playoff stats, man, they explode. And it makes sense. In the pre-playoff sort of zone, they feel like a near-perfect team. Like, you talk about the way they execute, the way they play off each other, the players hitting shots, the confidence they play with. Everyone believes in themselves, believes in the man next to them. And that's quite important. They actually have that faith in each other. It's just when it comes to the big stages they crumble. So yeah, technically there is a stage. It's still the groups. They will be fine. I expect them to maybe go through 3-1. I see them losing one of the 2-0 games to one of my 3-0 picks. I think that makes the most sense. I was going to pick Spirit here, because that's who I put as my other 3-0, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to have one crazy me pick and one sensible, just calm, let's take the best team in groups kind of pick. And that's where I'm going with this. Just a bit of strategy. Just so I don't put all my eggs in these guys shoot good basket. These guys also think good, execute good, generally are a solid Counter-Strike team. Yeah, they're easy favorites for this stage.
Until they're not. Sometimes they're a great Counter-Strike team until we get to those playoffs. But that's really the bar for entry. Yeah, they've got the one Hungarian player rather that is on the roster and
home
on
major.
Home soil. Yeah, if there's ever going to be a time where MOUZ fuck up in groups, maybe it's this actually. If they have expectations of winning, I mean, the pressure as well of trying to perform for not only Torchy but Torchy himself to do that in front of a home crowd. If pressure is what gets to MOUZ, there's more on the group stage than there is probably for some of the other teams necessarily, just because making the playoffs is a bare minimum, and it should be the bare minimum for a team like MOUZ. So I have my concerns. I mean, I know we've talked about it before, mid-rounding is great. There's some of the set pieces are also great. Tactically, this team can be as diverse as any of the other elite teams and probably deserve to have won more trophies this year. But they just haven't. They've lacked the necessary punch in these finals, and I think it's still similar to what used to happen to old MOUZ with Shuei, where occasionally we'd see all these tactics and these cool little interplay pieces, and then you get into the playoffs and it's like they're playing a completely different brand of Counter-Strike. It's like far more confidence driven, far more individual. At least for the first 6 to 8 rounds, and I don't know if that's a a thing to try and get more swagger on stage, but I've seen it break down so much that I don't believe in that philosophy, and it just has to come from either players not listening or people are locked in their own space. They're just such an enigma of a team when it gets to the differences we see from groups to playoffs. But yeah, I mean, they're a very comfortable groups team every single time. I don't think there's any... I would stretch to make an argument against them in that regard, because, you know, that high caliber quality you get from Xertion, from Spinks, from Torji, from Jimfat. You know, I'm a bit of a Jimmy hater necessarily.
Yes, you are. Yes.
But all those players are top quality when they know they've got lives to play with.
Yeah, 100%. I was trying to look back and see when the last time they lost against a team where I'd say it's a bad loss was, and I had to go back to like the last major where they lost against VP in a best of one. Other than that, they just beat everyone. Like, they pretty much only lose against the top teams. That's probably because that's normally happening in playoffs. And even in playoffs now, like in the past, you feel like MOUZ could lose to anyone in playoffs. Now I feel like if there's a team that aren't that good that make it to playoffs, MOUZ will beat them. Like, MOUZ will beat like the 8th best team in the world in playoffs. Like, there's some improvement there. I also think that it's just kind of a shame, because it's getting a bit boring having the same conversation around MOUZ, isn't it? Like, and it's weird because I actually think Spinks is quite good in these big games quite a lot of the time. He actually can have some big clutches, and he can normally hold his own. So that felt like a step in the right direction. But then it's that issue of, if you are the GM of this team, I feel like you'd almost feel like we've just got to roll the dice somewhere. But it is that question of where do you do it? Because there's so much that works about this team in the prior stages. Like, I think Spinks was such a great pickup for this team. For them to be able to get Spinks, I think was actually fantastic, because he is just so good. He should be on a team that competes for trophies, in my opinion. And then Xertion is very good as an aggressive rifler, but he's one that I think can start to struggle. And if the team is struggling in playoffs, your aggressive guy is probably going to struggle because of that, right? And I think that's part of why Xertion can sometimes struggle. Brolan's a weird one, because whenever I watch him, I feel like he's not that good, but then his numbers are pretty decent for an in-game leader. They're actually quite good. So clearly that means he's doing something right. Yeah, and Torji's just like a pretty good AWPer, which there aren't that many of right now. So that's always nice to have. So yeah, I think they're very likely to make it through this stage. And yeah, just same old MOUZ, MOUZ probably.
Yeah. I mean, the real harsh thing would be like, get rid of, you know, I do think that MOUZ are getting to a point where if they continue to lose in these types of environments in these playoffs, like, you're going to have, like, I agree with you, you'll roll the dice, or you're going to have to make a roster change, almost for the sake of making a roster change.
Yeah.
Just to, like, improve the atmosphere and give a bit of different energy.
I mean, do you know what? Maybe you do just have to get an in-game leader instead of Brolan. Maybe they need, like, a strong leader who's going to actually make these guys have faith. Because, like, we all watch Brolan, and it's like, this guy seems like he would not be the most talkative, like, hype-up guy.
He's barely calling, isn't he? That's always my reaction when I watch a peer of like, just the faces and everything. I'm like, so CT side, Torji don't shut the hell up. Xertion's always got something to say. When does Brolan do the IGLing? Maybe that's why he's got great numbers. He's just an IGL entitled. That's about it.
He just gets given like 5 options, and he's just like, we're going with C. We're taking number 3. We're doing that.
Yeah, he's an American school child. He's just great at passing multiple choice tests. Like, that's all he's actually built for. And look, the one thing that I just want to point out, because you did mention Torji, just a solid AWPer. And you're right, on average, across the year. This is right now probably one of his lowest periods in terms of this year, in terms of his career. He's actually been awful. He's been playing like he's in a dead AWP meta. Like, the scope is just nothing. He's just not been anywhere near as good. And there have been periods throughout the year where he's looked solid on a rifle, and that's kind of helped them through. I mean, I remember a big upset win they had over Spirit early in the year that I had to almost dismiss, because I was like, you're not getting that Torji rifling again. And I was right, because that fell off. His AWP came back, but now, this point, nothing's really working for him. I'm really not the biggest fan of Torji's play, as much as I'm a fan of him in theory as a player, because historically been my like textbook example of how to be a CT AWP, how to take over the game, seize the game, really assert yourself as an AWPer, make your gun worth its money. But right now, I actually think this is probably the darkest time in his career. Hopefully he turns it around. I mean, home soil major, this would be the period, right? Come in, bang out these groups, go into the playoffs, and hey, anything's possible. If the matchups are right, you may not even have to beat that many of the greatest teams in the world to win your major. You can have one of those disgustingly ugly looking major runs that some other teams have had. A bit of fortune. I mean, praying to that god is, it can go both ways, but hopefully, for Dorji's sake, it goes his. I've got another pick here. And I'm going to go through the underdogs because I have to, and also because, well, yeah, it's kind of interesting down there. We've got some teams that have been, I think, more impressive than we expected, like Liquid, like Passion USA. I don't think a lot of people had them making it this far. A lot of people saw them, floundering, flopping. No, they took care of business yesterday in that 2-2 game. 3 Max, another interesting little team. But I'm gonna go with, I guess, the community favorite. They've been one of my favorites. They've been everyone who comes on this kind of show. A lot of tier 2 casters. Everyone loves this team. I'm going to take Parivision as my first underdog. Going to skip right over Pain. Going to skip right over Liquid, 3D Max, even Passion USA. All of those guys, higher rated.
Great 0-3 count. Great 0-3 candidates, really.
Yeah, a lot of them. Like I've got my 0-3. I think I've got Imperial, and I think it's Passion. It might be Pain or Liquid. I can't remember how disrespectful I felt. Actually, I have a screenshot. It's Liquid. There we go.
By Liquid.
Check my screenshot. It's Liquid. But I'm going to take Parivision because they've won in a variety of ways at this event. And it's been a sort of breakout for certain players. I think we've seen, a lot of us who've watched this team online, you see Nota as the role player, like, someone had to do it. Someone had to be the role player. And when you've got 4 pretty much just aggro stars from various Russian-speaking teams, someone had to be the anchor and closer and clutcher. I don't know about you, but I've watched some of the POVs of AW from these games, these big wins. Some of it was also on stream, on broadcast. They just caught his POV because he was in the clutches in the 1v2s. He just looks so self-assured. He has no right to be as well. Like, bro, with that haircut, you're that confident. Outrageous. But he is. He's just hitting these clean little taps, taking players off the bomb, repositioning smoothly, reading the situation magnificently. He's so clutch in a way that I would never expect from a player so young, so early in his career, and obviously with no experience at this kind of level. In a new role, he looks brilliant. Nota's having a real, burst out in Stage 2. He was one of the highest rated players of Stage 2. He was fantastic, especially in that overtime against NIP. In both overtimes, I think he just started taking over rounds, finding multiple frags, especially closing things out. It was a surprise to see him pop up in that way, but something he's always been capable of. And of course, this isn't even going to mention Belchanok, who's been one of their best CT side players, Ziello, who's had massive carry performances on the T side entries. They've got talent across the board, and bringing it all together is a guy who is underrated as an AWPer just by himself. Massively underrated in his ability to get the most out of teams, though. That's something people often just don't give Jame enough credit for. They talk about, the slow gameplay, the saving. Buddy, he's just awesome when it comes to making teams tick, making them win. And he's just really good at it. I think they're going to be frustrating to play against. They're going to upset people. They're going to sneak into playoffs. It's one of my riskier picks I've made in this show, but I need something. I need a Hail Mary to go my way if I want to bring this show back at this point. I'm still down 5 points. We're going into the last quarter of the last quarter. You know what I mean? This is really dire. That's my Hail Mary, Parivision, to upset the odds.
Damn. I think that it's been a weird run with Parivision because in that first stage, AW was actually pretty awful. He was having maps where it was he looked
like
really
himself
bad.
online. Online, that's how he kind of is. He just doesn't look suited or comfortable.
Yeah, and then weirdly in this stage, he just he stepped up massively, and I don't know where it came from, but it was much needed, honestly, at times. And the other one is when I watch this team in general, I always kind of feel like, to me, it feels like Ziello and Belchanok should be the best 2 riflers on the team. That's kind of what it feels like. I feel like, to me, whenever I watch Ziello, I'm like, this guy looks looks very, very good to me. And then Belchenok, I feel like normally looks like he's pretty locked down as well. But for some reason in this stage, Notta was just like insanely good. Which there's part of me that's like, I don't feel like that can happen again. But it was a lot of fun to watch. In a weird way, there was some games in this stage too, though, where I can't remember which matchup it was, but there was a match I watched. It might have been against NIP, where Jame was actually missing loads of AWP shots, and he was setting himself up really well for these easy AWP kills and just missing them, which was bizarre because that's the opposite of what I'd expect from Jame. So hopefully that can get turned around. But overall, it's kind of just a question of how much does it get to these rookies at this point? And the thing is, we were asking this in the previous stages.
We asked this in stage 1. Yeah, stage 1, I was like, the big if. Mentally, can they do it? Then, again, the reminder. Always the reminder. Jame took nobody to the major final. He then took a couple of nobodies and some kids, some different kids, to a major win. Should we be that surprised? The Jame Dastan duo undefeated for this kind of complete bollocks.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of talented players, obviously. Yeah, I just love thinking about the fact that Norbert is a major winner. Like it's
Norbin time.
My God.
Literally, like that guy, and then he just pretty much disappears, and no one ever hears from him again, pretty much. But yeah, all in all, like I can't really believe that all these players will continue to play this well. Like maybe this is the stage where it does finally catch up to them. It does definitely feel like they just caught like a really good wave coming into this tournament because they were just winning a lot against weaker teams. And I think it was nice. I definitely feel like actually them not playing a lot of top tournaments for a while probably helped them because I think they were slept on quite a bit. I feel like a lot of teams weren't really fully ready. And it's not like the classic James style, but there's enough of Jame in there that it's going to throw teams off. But I think this is the stage where you'd expect now people should take them seriously and should do their due diligence and have the footage to watch against top teams. And I think that could just catch them out. But I think it's a decent underdog pick for sure, because I don't think a lot of these other underdogs are good. So I see why you've gone for it. I wouldn't expect it though. I wouldn't expect it.
In classic Jame fashion, they get it done at the last minute. Like, let's be real. They didn't necessarily deserve to be in the major with the way that they were playing, even coming into the second season. They squeaked through, I think, because of the majestic Landalan win. And then they make it through into the stage 1 and stage 2, and they're powering up a little bit. I think what I'm disappointed about with the roster is it does seem I'm getting a clearer and clearer picture that it is like, I mean, the system is different from old James styles, but it seems like it's a little bit more hectic in that sense as well. Like all of these riflers that are still playing like very contained inside of bomb sites, not doing too much activities on CT sides. It does seem like there's maybe more chatter and more uncertainty and more talk about what they're going to do if this happens than the protocoled, like drilled in everything we know is going to happen type of style that Jame used to thrive in. I would maybe attribute that to some of the Jame misses. It seems like he's a little uncertain about his own reads at times. He's maybe uncertain about what his teammates are going to do on the other side of the map. But the real disappointment has actually been Belchenok, because he should be there. But like Cielo was probably a secondary to Belchenok in my eyes coming into this major, but Belchenok has fallen through the floor, and he's not getting impact on T sides the same way he used to, at least in online play, or even in the majestic Landalan. Like we're not. This is not the dynamic of Parivision that got them into this stage in the first place, but I'm liking what is emerging out of that even still. Like, from the ashes, we're getting an AW that can win clutches. We're getting a Cielo that is having these massive impact mid-round moments. We're getting Jame even with, clutches, and, that's not necessarily doing too well in stage 2, but had a great stage 1. And still, the calling is, it's a little slow. I get it. The tempo isn't the same as even the online Parivision, where it seems like they have a little bit more punch, but they're so risk averse that teams are getting caught at some of the timings that they're speeding up on. Like I saw quite a few rounds where Parivision are literally just pulling a fast one over NIP on like at the minute mark after 20 odd rounds of conditioning where everything is slow and they're not doing anything in that sort of timing, seeing players with their grenades pulled out, or like they're holding on to util waiting for that late exec. And like those are the types of moments that make James' type of calling so compelling to me, is that, you know, you see teams actively drop their guard and then they go in for the sucker punch. And I can't not love that. Like, I love that James is just a rat in that regard.
That's just classic tempo, though. That's how you call.
Yeah.
That's just great calling. You love to see it.
It's just rare, is the problem. Like, they just rarely throw the punch.
Yeah. Okay. Yumi, we're back to you, though. You have a favorite slot open, an underdog slot open. You can go anywhere you want with this. Where are you going to take it?
You know what? Fuck it. I might have been their starter hater on the roster moves, but this is a team that actually could improve rapidly and show us just a totally different look. I'm going with Spirit in the favorites category. There are concerns. You know, it seems like Jouet can only play Mirage, and every other map he's pretty shit
best
on.
of ones. Best of ones.
Yeah,
you can play the
best
Mirage.
of ones. If they let through Mirage. I find it so hard to not look at this team and think, you know, Tanir is great, or at least was great on Heroic. Donk is fantastic. Shiro is fantastic. Jouet sometimes has like an uptick in performance. Like, if things slot in well here for Spirit, this is the team that should be the surprise of the major. Like, if I said it before, like the early pro leagues, the early events that they had with this 5 roster, if it didn't work immediately, the major was where it was going to show up. And I feel like I have to stick with that line of thinking, because players are adopting new roles. They still don't understand who's going to be the aggressive piece on T sides. Like, I saw events where Jouet's taken like 35% of opening fights, which is just not something that he's ever really done in his career. Tanir seems like he forces issues. It seems like there's too many cooks on like who is going to actually get in the kitchen and fry up around. And I think they're starting to go through that change where we saw it before with Spirit, where instead of Donk going for a lot of aggressive moves, I remember on Anubis, we'd start seeing Chopper set up for some of those duels, and Donk would go into trade and actually try and play so that he could maybe survive into a late round moment. I think that's the dynamic that is now starting to rear its head a little bit. I've seen some promising signs for Spirit in that regard, but all that uncertainty is affecting Donk a little bit. Like, we talk about the downfall of Monacy being greatly exaggerated. The downfall of Donk, it's also exaggerated, but it's not untrue that there has been a slight dip in form. And that's because of all the uncertainty. And you see more frustration on Donk's face than you had in even some of their losses before, when they had Zontix and, they added Jouet. Donk seems just like annoyed that players are making mistakes or not coming or talking about the things properly. That's where I'm hoping things get refined. Because when things slot in well, Spirit have a lot of firepower and tools at their disposal. And they don't play a shit tactical game. Like, people can talk shit about Chopper all they want, but he actually doesn't play that shit of a tactical game.
He's the worst IGL in the scene, needs to be replaced. I don't know what you're talking about. Every tier 3 caller who speaks vaguely something resembling Russian should replace him. I don't understand what you mean. Just ask chat. They say that every time I go live. But Hawka, I've had to endure a lot of conversations, as you can tell, when it comes to Spirit, the IGL situation, all those other sorts of things. I'm curious, where do you stand on this? We haven't had you on the show since the last major, so hey, maybe you've got a fresh take that we've not heard.
I do think, especially recently, the concern has been that, Donk, you can just see him get frustrated, and then I almost feel like he feels like he has to do more, and it gets you into this negative cycle of, not only is he kind of lashing out at the team a bit, which I can't imagine helps them, but he also just seems like he doesn't have faith in the team right now, and you can see that. Like, I think you can see that in the way he's playing, and unfortunately, it means that I honestly think I don't even think his levels dipped really that much at all. I actually just think it's the other team issues around it. I am someone who I think Chopper is like an okay caller, The problem is, I think that he's a pretty bad fragger for an in-game leader. And to me, that combination makes you a bad in-game leader, because I can't watch this guy individually, man. I can't do it. And that's before you get to Zwei. I think this is a team I would have left personally, but they should still make it through this stage. It's just, I think some of the other favorites should be better. The thing is, you have Donk and Shiro, which is just, it's just an incredible 1-2 punch to have. Seriously, like even the play style of these guys complements each other very well. You can have Shiro just able to sit back, and I will give Chopper credit for that. I guess like he does get to put Shiro in these positions a fair amount of the time. It's just the crazy one is the Tanir one. He's like, Zwei's obviously been bad, and I think that's been clear to see. But it kind of means that Tanir doesn't get talked about as much, and he looked like a real stud before coming onto this team. And I just assumed he would slot in and look very good. And that just has not really happened. You don't really get that X factor out of him. He's just been mediocre for the most part, which is not how he should be considering the roles he has on this team. So I hope that he steps up, because I think he's a really good player. It's just we haven't seen it so far. There is this weird thing of players playing on heroic and then going to bigger teams and struggling. Like I feel like Nertz has done this as well, where I'm like, did you just do very well on heroic because they like put everything into you and got the most out of you, and then you kind of fall off a bit? Is that some weird thing that's going on? I know Nertz was on heroic a while ago now, but like.
No, it's the seesaw effect. You know? It's the seesaw effect. If you seesaw is your coach, you're going to be great as a rifler.
There we go.
Afterwards, you fall down, though.
But overall, it's just, it's just a shame that it feels like it has to be, I just say Donk and Shiro, and then I'm like, yeah, that'll be enough. You know, that's kind of how I feel right now.
That's the thing, though. You know, in theory, Tanir is supposed to give you more options away from Zontics. But we actually are seeing at the moment, like, Tanir is struggling to even get involved in some of these games. And when he does pick up on flow, he's having great games. But it's like these massive peaks and troughs in between where it's, you know, him and the comparison to Nerds, you know, yes, there's the through line with heroic, but, you know, as players, they're fairly similar as well, you know, very aggressive, and then, you know, a little stop-start, controlling the mid-round. That's where it seems like they have a lot of their influence. And I just don't think that, Tanir's not feeling the flow in Spirit. And I don't think anybody really is, because there's all this role mismanagement and just this total chaos inside of the comms. But I'm expecting improvement. Like, this is going to be my caveat with Spirit always, is that they're tactically good enough. They've got enough firepower. They just need to actually find the cohesion with it. Whereas, you know, when I talk about the Falcons, I'm like, I don't see as much of the same tactics, but they've got the firepower and they have that little bit of cohesion. You know, like, it just seems like the stat points are in different places for both these teams, where Falcons have maybe proven that they can get into those winning positions more, but they've also had longer to find the refinement. I'm giving that same lead time here to Spirit coming into the second season, where this major should be that first checkpoint, at least for them.
Yeah, I have Spirit in my 3-0s. That's one of my pick'ems.
Wow.
Sort of details. Well, you know, 3-0 for me is always difficult, right? You know, do you just put the two best teams in the stage? You shouldn't. It's never them. But I also felt like, in terms of teams that should arrive at this stage and sort of unleash, you know, they have the firepower to really win every single game, every type of game, every map. They can just go win maps because they have those star caliber players just littered all over the roster. Like, you can expect a freak sort of takeover map when you have 4 players who can have freak takeovers. Like, it's not unreasonable to have this kind of team going through 3-0 when it's best of one, then a best of 3. So, no, I do have some optimism for them. I just have to also reiterate, it's looked a bit ugly. It's looked a bit confused, a bit muddled at times. Like, how do you, as Tanir, now navigate your round? Like, it was that you were the star player, but you chose your moment to go. You just, you kind of floated, you kind of felt the round out how you wanted, then chose your moment. Now it's, all of a sudden there's this weird structure. Like, oh, I need to be setting up a bit of a donk, maybe a Zwei fight somewhere. Then I need to somehow find a way to inject myself, my presence, make my lurk, make something happen. it's a very different question being asked of Tanir, and he hasn't found the answer yet. Partially him, partially Chopper, and I think a good chunk of Hallie. Mr. I got it wrong. Hasn't got it right yet. So if this is the event they get it right, hey, it'll be another out of nowhere Spirit major win where we always knew they had the talent for it, but just the results leading up to it didn't quite scream major winners. It could be done again. I'm quite worried. Hawka, you now have another pair of back-to-back picks. You do have a favorite slot and an underdog slot left to fill. Where would you like to start?
I do. Okay. So in theory, in the favorites, the fact that Na'Vi is still there means I should pick them. But I'm a G2 boy, okay? I'm a G2 boy through and through. I just think this team is still being so slept on, man. I'm telling you, outside of the top 3, I think they've got the 4th best chance to win the major. I really do. Their peak with their firepower is insanely high. It is so high. And the issue this team had at the start, it felt like Pius wasn't online. I think he's actually come online now. I think he looks good as an AWPer. I also back Pius to show up in big games. I've seen this guy on stages do very well. And they have a bunch of those players that I think can do well in big moments. I also think at Chengdu, they only lost against Vitality and Furia. And their big issue was they picked Train twice against those guys and got spanked on it. If they can sort that out, sort out their map pool and figure out a good pick, I think they can be in great shape because they're always going to be a threat on the opponent's map pick. And that showed at Chengdu. They took Vitality to 13-11. They took on Mirage. They took Furia to overtime on Overpass. I didn't think G2 would be a good Overpass team. The fact that they can compete against Furia, who have been so good on that map, that shows me a lot. And yeah, it just needs to come down to them getting a more reliable and consistent map pick. And I have faith in Saw. I have faith in Saw that he'll be able to do that. I think Hunter, again, he just needs to be good enough as an IGL because of the talent on this team. I think the questions you have are maybe around like a Mattis, for example, because I really like him, but I do think sometimes he just has that super high-risk play style where it's like if you're making these aggressive moves and you're getting them wrong, it can cost you so dearly. And sometimes that feels like it's a bit self-motivated. And when that's the case, do I really trust that Mattis over time is going to be able to continue to catch these timing windows and maybe make some of these sort of aggressive moves or second-in moves? I don't necessarily know he's fully that guy, but I've seen that he can at least be capable of it because his raw aim is that good. And the fact that someone like a MOUZ has almost kind of become more of like a supportive player on this team now, I think that shows the sort of quality that they have. I do think that the big question is, again, like Hunter's calling, which I think it can be just good enough. And also his individual level, it felt like dipped ever since the London debut, which everyone is saying is that one fluke event. Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair assessment. But also, I do believe that Hunter can pick it up again. I think that he is just good. He's always had a thinking mind for the game. So I don't think that it's going to be this massive issue that he's having to call now. I think he can still manage that. So I just like a lot about this team. And I think with a little bit of extra time now to really like cook this roster, a little bit more time off, I think that can help them a lot. So yeah, I'm going with G2. Logically, I probably should have gone Na'Vi because they're just such a safe and reliable team. But, you know, you got to have fun. And I'm a G2 fan, you know. I'm a
pick
G2
with your
boy.
heart. Pick with your heart.
Exactly.
We love it. We love it. Look, G2 have been a heart pick for me as well. Like, I'm like MOUZ MD fan, a Mattis fan. After that, you stick Heavy God into the mix. Sure, Pius. I don't share your sort of optimism for his recent form. He's certainly not, but he's better than... maybe he's like the 9th best AWPer in the world, and hell, that's a miracle in and of itself. But
even that might be generous.
Yes, but we're trying to be generous here. Come on, he's competing with Holzerk. Like, let's try and give him an edge somewhere.
And Holzerk, come on now.
But yeah, Yumi, you know, we go back and forth on these kinds of teams. Like, you know, I'm a big aim cell. I love just, you know, play a bit loose, play off your individuals. You know, whole ass your ideas, but they don't have to be the best ones. Where do you stand on G2 coming into this? Because, you know, they had the London win, some disappointments. Can this be a bounce back?
The London win I'll always chalk up as just, maybe not like a fluke, but the anomaly of this team has made roster moves and they're playing a totally different style. Like, we didn't see them go as many aggressive, like, bozo plays on CT sides. We saw like more refined setups on sites. We actually saw them have protocols for when there was a flash somewhere, there would be a counter flash or a molly. I thought there was a better system in place for G2 just off the jump. I think the problem now is essentially, who do you look at as your tip of the spear? Because I actually don't know who I would even invoke that upon. You know, I think there's merit to Hunter potentially doing it so that his riflers have more room to breathe in the mid round. I think there's justifications for MOUZ to do it, given how good he's been in the past. You know, the sporadic style of Mattis, which, you know, is a little bit, you know, he has problems, I think, lining up spacing with teammates. It's the same thing I saw on Fnatic before, where he would take a timing and he wouldn't necessarily wait up for his teammates before making that play.
Yeah.
And then some Pius, the man who misses many shots, the man who isn't that great a rifler either. Actually, on his best day, he can be. It's tough. Like, I think G2 are just in a rough spot. I don't necessarily have the same confidence that they can be a fourth contender for this major, just simply because I don't think they haven't fixed what their core issues with the roster were in the first place. Like, G2 has always struggled with not having the structure and not having the piece that can open and win you the game. You know, when MOUZ came in, that was essentially what he was supposed to do, take over Nico. But he just hasn't been that guy. You know, he hasn't called properly in the mid rounds. He hasn't asked for resources in the right ways. And I just don't have, you know, I believe in a lot of these players. Like, I'm a fan of Heavy God. I'm a fan of MOUZ. I'm a fan of Mattis. Honestly, Hunter's won a little bit of favor as well. But
Manzy's won Inferno mid-round, and all of a sudden he's sold.
Listen, I can love all the players, but hate them collectively. And I think the G2 experiment has always been bring in players you like and make them suck until they fluke a tournament win. So I bought out. I sold on G2. I don't want them. I'm not reinvesting.
I just can't believe I'm surrounded by some Pius haters. I think some Pius is better than Wonderful. Like, that's where I'm at. He is. He is. You're gonna see it. He's a big game player. He's good. He's good, man.
That's one of the smelliest takes I've seen.
That's a sad take right there.
As much as I've been one of the biggest Wonderful critics over the last 2 years, like the last 4 seasons basically of Counter-Strike play as we now break it down. And I can't stand behind that. Like,
he's picked it up, man. He
Wonderful's more stable, more consistent, a better rifler, better suited to the meta. Like, he's just better than some Pius. If we take these guys back to 2016, and maybe in that era you could have a conversation, but still, things get loose. I'm still picking Wonderful. Like, I've seen him play wet and wild and crazy. I just don't like the idea of a Sun Pius AWP right now. He's just not been good enough.
I'm telling you, he's look. I just looked it up. Last 3 months, Sun Pius against top 10 opponents, 1.05. Wonderful, 0.98. And there it is, boys. Proven.
It's a real specific stat. What are our map counts on these two teams? Because they're not really very successful, are they?
We got like 20 maps each.
That's what I'm saying.
That's all you need. That's all you need. You guys are gonna be caught out by Sun Pius.
I hope so, for your sakes. But also, speaking of you, Hawka, you've got another pick, an underdog left to select. Let's just look through these options. Pain, 3D Max, Liquid, Passion, Imperial. I know I've seen the message before in chat. People love Imperial. People want to see the upset run, specifically certain Brazilians. But still, who are you going to go with? Who are you going to back in this list of dark horses?
I'm telling you that I look at the names on paper and I'm like, it should be Liquid. It's not going to be Liquid. I'm going to tell you that right now. I can't pick him. The problem is, like, it should be Liquid, but it can't be Liquid. And then I don't really massively like any of the other guys either. I mean, I kind of like 3D Max, but I don't. Oh God, do I have to go 3D Max? Maybe I have to go 3D Max. Okay, we'll go 3D Max. The problem is with these guys, they kind of feel like the classic team that make it to this stage and then they cause like one upset and then they don't make it. That's kind of how they feel as a team. I do think that against NIP, obviously they just smacked them, and I wonder if that's playing into my pick a bit, and I might be getting baited by that because they looked insanely good in that game. But I do think in general, like they do have obviously pretty good players on the team. They do have their like they can just do weird stuff sometimes, which I think is good to catch people out. To be honest, this is kind of a classic underdog pick where it's me kind of not believing in the other picks for the most part, but also the cohesion of 3D Max is always there, and I'll always believe that can get you quite far. And I also think that sometimes people talk about 3D Max like their individuals are just quite bad, and that they because of that because of that,
all the time
they get the most out of what they can. I think that's a bit harsh. I think their individuals are a bit better than sometimes people give them credit for. Like, I do think Mac is a pretty good AWP. I do think Body's pretty good. I like these guys. I don't think they're... It almost feels like people view them as, I guess, like almost like a Big back in the day, but like Big had like Legia and stuff, and I'm like, dude, that guy, like, come on now, let's calm down. Like, they have a decent... I think the main thing is no one is like bad on this team, I would say. No one is actively bad, and they have some pretty good players. It does feel like against a lot of these opponents, they should just get outskilled. I will give you that. But if they're in like a 2-2 game, compared to some of these other teams, I actually think the cohesion, as long as it holds, can take them far. I really do think that they have that, and they have this ability, especially recently. They've been going with a bit more train, and I feel like stuff like that, where I see them pick up the most recent map and try and flex that and make the most of that, they just get the most out of a lot of these small margins, and I think that can help them. So that's why I picked 3D Max, and also because I don't have faith in any of the other teams. Well, that's probably mainly it.
3D Max are the type of team you can become if you just try really hard. You know, I think 3D Max are a try hard team where, yeah, they don't have the elite caliber of some of these other teams. They couldn't necessarily punch up in the same way. You know, I would even say, you know, that big clan comparison is where I put them primarily, aside from the fact that, you know, leading into this major, they had lost to like loads and loads of teams that were underneath them and they shouldn't lose to. But that's where they should be. And I think part of the issue that they have is that they don't, you know, this is the big clan that had Zentares. There's no one like that on 3D Max. There's no one that can live up to that expectation, but they also play a more cohesive game than Big Clan. You know, Zentares was kind of the oddball X factor in a lot of ways outside of the structure, where he kind of bought in a little bit, but only because they were giving him flashes to peak things. Like, it wasn't because he loved the system. It was more a necessity of his environment. And yeah, unfortunately 3D Max just don't have that same caliber. But they pull off these tricks, and they're just such an annoying team in that regard, where, you know, you'll know that they're going to go for these boosts over smokes. You know, they're going to blow the smokes. You know, they're going to fucking sometimes rush through them. But if they catch you with one of those plays, it must be so fucking annoying, because you understand that that's how they're going to play. They're going to try and bring you into like these scrappy engagements. But then they get away with it, and you just think, man, we prep for this, and then they still pull off the bullshit. And you know that you're better players. That's the only thing I have as an angle for 3D Max. They're like 3D mad. They just make you annoyed and upset. And that's why I agreed. They should pull off an upset in this stage, but I don't think they're going to make it to the next one, because they're going to get deep enough where the upper bracket games, like the 1-1s or the 1-2s or 2-1s or whatever, are just going to give them a draw against somebody like a FaZe or a MOUZ or Vitality. Who knows, man? Like, there's going to be one of those teams that just meets them deeper in the tournament, and then 3D Max just don't have anything to offer up in that point.
Yeah, look, you were that close, Yumi. You had to call them not 3D Max or 3D Mad. It's 3X Mad. You just switch the letters. They make you triple mad. They're so tilting to play against, because Gravity's just pushing everything. We saw it against NIP. As soon as there was any sort of, like, pause, quiet, it's just like, I'm just going to walk through A main. Oh, look, I'm just going to shoot people in the back of the head on repeat. On the other side, like, across the team, you've got these sorts of players, though, who are frustrating their own little ways. Like, Lucky is just, he's terrible. Mechanically, he's a bad Counter-Strike player, but he's so smart, positionally, on point. He just constantly converts, constantly checks the right corners, checks the right angles, holds for the right flanks. As soon as NIP tried to get that same flank off, all of a sudden, look who's looking behind him. It's that little rat bastard. It's Lucky. He's just canny. He's just difficult to play against, annoying, and the same could be said about other players, you know, with the aggressions, with the skill. Like, Bonnie's just probably the most all-round, complete, legit tier 1 player on the team. Like, that's kind of what he is to me. Everyone else has kind of got their weird little idiosyncrasies, but it just combines so well because they all bought in. They all love the style they play. They go for it. They go for every round. Like, they give it their all. I think 3D Max are a difficult team to play against. At this sort of stage, though, is usually where things start to struggle. You know, they've been sort of 10th to 12th, at times 9th. Ooh, exciting. But realistically, just outside that top 10 for the most part. They haven't really managed to push through beyond that point because they do not have a star. Like, in a real tier 1 environment, they don't have a star. It has to be the all-in buy-in, the strats worked, the crazy stack worked, the boost worked, the gimmick worked, or very little else. They can't rely, I think, in the same way on just individual, like, duels and winning out clutches just because you are the better player in terms of your aim. Like, they don't have that option. That solution is not available to them. So I think they are going to come up short. Now, they are opening this stage with a best of 1 against Pain.
Yeah.
I have that upset in the books as well. That's one of my other upsets from this first round. I think they are primed to win that BO1, you know, coming in prepped, coming in, you know, warmed up against a Pain who are, yeah, I don't know what they're doing here, to be honest. You know, they are the polar bear in Arlington. Like, where did you come from? Like, it doesn't make any sense that Pain are here with all these other legit awesome teams. Thank you, regional charity, for letting them slip in here. But I do feel like they're going to start off with an upset. That's going to be nice for them. That's going to get them on the right track. But overall, yeah, I see them 1-3, maybe 2-3. Hell, if all things go perfectly, I guess they can sneak a 3-2, but that would come down to matchups and a couple of performances. So fingers crossed for you, but I just don't think it's possible.
We've had a fair few of teams that go 2-0 and then go 0-3 afterwards, right? So I mean,
yeah,
I think
in the
that's
1-0 games, it's going to be tough for them to repeat the upset. I think that's going to be much more difficult.
I just think that is, you know, for 3D Max, that could be the theoretical anomaly where it's just like, okay, yeah, they make it to 2-0, but they're not winning that 2-0 game if they get there.
That 1-0 game is the game where you don't get the prep time. Like, you're just, okay, another best of 1 same day. Like, if the right opponent hasn't actually got the time to prep for them, then you know, you never know.
Maybe it cuts both ways, though. I think that it does cut both ways. So
that's true.
We'll see. 3D Max will be they'll make you 3x mad. They'll really tilt you. We'll see how they can perform. Yumi, your final pick of the show, another underdog for yourself. Are you going to be the one who picks Liquid? Are you the believer in the NA dream that still isn't very American?
I pick Spirit, though, is the problem. So it's like they play each other in the first round. I just feel a little cheap.
It's only one game.
Yeah.
It means they can't play in the 2-2. Great.
That is also true.
When they inevitably come down to it, yeah.
And they have a Hungarian as well. It's tempting.
I guess.
It is tempting. It's a shame because I'm gonna pick Pain. I'm not sure if I necessarily love this choice for myself. But there was just something about it that was speaking to me. And I think it was mainly because the philosophy is changing in Pain. They're changing the way that they play their game. It's not just head first, Big Uzera, live or die by his openers. Like, they're setting up Snow better, and he's playing actually very, very well. You know, since he's had to adopt this new philosophy or the new responsibilities, he's exceeding expectations. It's the other pieces that seem to sort of be lingering behind. You know, David Deus isn't having the same sort of impact or explosiveness. DGT isn't really getting his lurks off the same way that we got used to on 9Z. And NQZ is sometimes very good, and then other times just aggressively mid. Listen, I'm I guess banking in this stage that these teams have put in the necessary prep work to make these role adjustments and the game philosophy changes coming into this major. Because yeah, Pain probably don't deserve to be in stage 3 just off of an invite, just based on the way that they have been playing these past few months. but they have been a good team before, and they have good pieces that actually can work. I think there's compelling reasons for Pain, and it is the players and the fact that they are actually very, very talented. It's just finding that extra refinement, and I think they're going through the necessary growing pains leading into this tournament that honestly they should improve dramatically. Like, Pain are my one surprise for this stage. Spirit are maybe like they can maybe figure it out. Pain should be a legitimate surprise, I think, and it might be with how good they are, or it could be with how shit they are. We're gonna have to find out.
Here for the entertainment value more than anything. Yeah. They are a weird team. Like, I think it was Maui that said, if you're now trying to make Snow your star player, I just have no faith in you, because he looked so bad in the past. But I think he has picked it up, and I think we could see him play well. The one angle I could give you on Pain is that Big Uzera is this like weird caller. Like, he in the past has called a very weird style. I think you're right, they've changed it a bit, but they've had enough time off that it wouldn't like massively surprise me if they just came into this tournament and had some weird stuff. Because Big Uzera, like, he does, yeah, he used to do all these weird, like, lurky and sometimes aggressive, and I was like, he just kind of puts you, he would always kind of put you in weird spots. He'd like turn you inside out like a pretzel, and you'd be like, what's going on? This, like, it's just kind of confusing. And I could see them having some stuff like that if they've had the time off. That's maybe the one way I could try and give them some credit. I do think generally NQZ, I think, for this team is a pretty good AWPer, actually, for the most part. I actually quite like him as an AWPer. It is just, yeah, you don't really have that one player anymore that you look at on this team and you're like, yeah, this guy's like really, really good. Like you're right. Like DGT, I've really liked him in the past. He's not been as good lately. Davideus, I'm never sure I have massive faith in him, to be honest with you. He had a period where he was quite good, but I don't know if he's that guy who's going to be getting you entries all the time. So I don't know if they've quite really got enough, but we're kind of clutching at straws for a lot of these underdog picks anyway. And there's maybe that like small angle that I can go with you on, but yeah, do I actually think they'll do much here? No, not really.
Listen, it's not just about Big Uzera setting up the entire round conditioning so he could walk through a con smoke anymore. DGT also be aggressively walking through smokes. They've got other pieces.
We walk through 2 smokes at once.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, 2 smokes. Yeah, that's need we say anymore? Like,
no way they're watching both of these.
I'm tired of Pain. I've said this before on shows, like, always the underdog, always there, and always kind of whatever in the end. You know what I mean? Like, just kind of not that good. And it's in part because it has been all over the shop as far as how do they actually win games. Like, because Big Uzera calling and fragging a masterpiece that we need. Oh, is that it? Is that it? Like, you know, that's in the past been their win con. Now it's, can you call a masterpiece? And Snow is going to be the Terminator that we all are so afraid of. I'm not really there.
Let me make this argument as well, because the Mongols were definitely a team that were in that same conversation as Pain. You know, when we put them in tier lists, we put them, you know, even on the show, we used to pick, it was Pain or Mongols. You know, these 2 sweethearts from other sides of the world that actually called fairly similar. You know, Blitz was basically live or die by his entries and the things that he was able to do. Same with Big Uzera, you know, these 2 heavy fragging in-game leaders. That shift that the Mongols went through, where they stopped looking at Blitz as that opener, is exactly what unlocked the Mongols later down the line. And maybe this is too early for Pain, sure, but this is the same metamorphosis I'm expecting to see out of them, where, yeah, the calling becomes effectively too one-dimensional. You know, Senzu wasn't a star player. Well, he was a star player before joining the Mongols, but we didn't see him in that light when Blitz was still the front of the spear. It was just kind of Senzu and Mizinho were like supplementary. And then Senzu became a star. Like, we're having to shift responsibilities and trust in some of the young guns to step up to that plate. Snow was never a full big sight anchor where he couldn't move a muscle. That wasn't who he was before he joined the team. And so why is that now the way that we memory hole him? Because it's all we've known for the past couple of years. This is the changing moment for Pain. They're understanding that they have to take different approaches. they're putting more faith and trust in the players to perform and not just crumble. Because I think Big Uzera lost trust in his pieces that they didn't just fuck games over. Like, that was probably why he got rid of Lux. That's probably why they got rid of Kawez. You know, these more veteran or pieces that he thought he'd seasoned properly turned out to be too raw when we got into the big stages. It's just a dynamic and a mentality change, I think, for Big Uzera as a leader. And that's why I think Pain will get there. Maybe not now, but they will get there. This is their growing moment.
That was a nice story, Yumi, but I don't know if Snow is sensing. I just don't know. I don't know.
TLDL, too long didn't listen. Still not a big fan. No, it's a compelling case. I understand the comparison.
Yeah.
The problem is I had far more. To this day, I still have far more belief, but I had far more belief in terms of the way the Mongols approached their build. It wasn't just, we have one kid and we're going to try and mold him from something to something, you know. It was a process they took with multiple players. Multiple players they took from, you know, nothing, no bad tendencies, no pre-existing notions of what their role is, and built them into exactly the players they needed. Like, that's realistically.
Not true. 910 and Mizzino were bad.
They were
genuinely bad.
They were kids. That's what I'm saying. They didn't take...
So was Snow!
That's one guy. The rest of the roster are players from the Brazilian scene, from the South American scene, who were good coming to this team, just bad now, and it's just... Like, what am I supposed to expect with this? That you're now going to change them after they spent 3 years dominating their play. There's not an obscure lost in the midst of nowhere, sort of scene in the way the Mongolian scene was. This was, you know, South American stars. It's a far different mentality, a far different sort of, you know, slate you're working with. There's a lot painted on this canvas. You're not just going to scrape it off and remold it. So the fact that they haven't built their system around it successfully to get the most out of these players, I don't see how changing Snow's roles up is going to magically fix everything else. I just don't believe in it at all.
I also do feel like, if anything, like the fact that Blitz was able to adapt like that as an in-game leader, I actually think that was mad impressive. And I don't know if Big Uzera can do that. Maybe he can. I'd love to be proven wrong. But whenever you have an in-game leader that feels kind of like gimmicky, like you know, like Art, like he was never going to become some like standard top in-game leader. He was just doing his weirdness, you know. That's kind of how I feel. But you know, I like the optimism, Yumi. It's just you forgot that in Counter-Strike we have to be haters of everything all the time. So.
It's also, I don't disagree. There are egos to play at here.
Yeah.
But you know, this is the conversation that's brought up with the Mongols. Like, oh, nobody has any egos. Everyone just does their job and blah blah blah. That's just not true. Like, if you look at the Mongolian circuit, they have a lot of egos. In fact, that's probably a large reason why certain players get overlooked for the Mongols roster, is that their egos are maybe too big. You know, players like Score, Annihilation, maybe even Yami. You know, there's a lot of conversation. Like,
ego and dot.
Yes, there are some other things, but ego, I think, is definitely the thing that the Mongols have the most rap on. Whereas, you know, that's not indicative of the whole Mongolian region. We're like, everyone just looks at the Mongols as like these great brand ambassadors, and then thinks, wow, the Mongolian people have such great temperament. It's like, well, that's not everybody.
Yeah, so the fact that they did take the kids of the scene and force them into something, because if you're the 17-year-old as talented as Mizzino and you're born in Rio de Janeiro, you're probably playing with some decently like high-level teams, knowing the pug scene that they have out there with the different sort of regional orgs. It's probably a very different person you're looking at as a 17-year-old. So that's kind of the case I'm trying to make. Hey, it could come to fruition. The talent's theoretically there. That's always the problem with Pain, right? The talent is there. We've seen great things out of these players before. We're just really not seeing it now. So, hey, they could turn it around. As an underdog, it's not the worst idea. I just think they're losing to 3D Max. That opening BO1 from there, it's just all downhill.
It's super losable.
It is. The final pick of the show. It is myself with an underdog left to select. Imperial, Passion USA, and Liquid. In terms of caliber of player, Liquid, as we've been saying all day, should be picked. They should be picked. As far as what I've seen from them as a collective, it's a very different conversation. The fact that if they'd come out of this like first stage 3-0, you know, in terms of, you know, self-assured, super confident, smashed the teams that they played in the BO1s, who they are going to have to be playing in this pool with, because they lost to 2 teams that went through. Yeah, I think I'd be a lot more confident. They ran the gauntlet of BO3s, beating titans like MIBR and Tai Lu, and the Tai Lu game wasn't pretty from them, especially. Like, just wasn't a good game. A shockingly competent-looking Astralis win. I'll give them that. Even if it did take a classic Hooksy nuke T-side. Not the first time I've seen him pick nuke and absolutely squander it. So, yeah, there's pluses and minuses across the board. I can't talk myself into the Imperial pick. I tried to, just for a second there. Just in my head, I was like, could I? Try's really good sometimes. No, it's not there. It's not there. I don't believe in the no way form. I don't believe in it. There's no way that's legit. So I'm just left with Passion UA. Of course, now, formerly the Complexity roster, and politely renamed to Passion USA. I'm sure that's going to tick some people off, but it's just the right thing to call them.
So you are actually picking them?
Yeah, fuck Liquid. I'm taking Passion UA.
we danced around Liquid the whole time. And
I have them 0-3 in my pick'ems. I'm riding and dying with my pick'ems.
Oh, dear.
I've picked them 3-0, them to go through, and now these guys, because just I can't pick the other two of them. I owe 3 picks. Like, I can't. There was a part of me that was like, maybe the balancing act. Bet against your favorite team type of approach, where I picked Liquid 0-3, take them as an underdog just in case. Nope, I'm going
That's
all
a win-win.
in. Going all in. No win-wins. I'm taking a massive dub or the fattest L, and that's okay. Passion USA. Let's see. People who've misunderstood the concept, underdogs are here. Na'Vi all the way over there are actually favorites in this stage. So no, nobody's picking Na'Vi in the underdog slot. I've noticed the chat has gotten confused about Mongols as well, not being picked by anyone. They are favorites. They weren't valid for the underdog slot. Updated graphics coming next season to explain all of that to everyone live as we do the show. Yes, the feedback has been noted after 3 years of it. So let's talk about Passion USA. They had a tough go of things in their best of ones in stage 2. They were direct to stage 2. They play FaZe, MIBR, which is the layup, and then 3D Max. So they go 1-2, playing 2 teams who are actually in this stage. And 2 teams that I think, posed very different but very substantial problems, being FaZe, the firepower, 3D Max, the goofy gimmick, and what the hell am I facing sort of issue you run into with them a lot of the time. But they do have what I consider to be like a strong IGL, strong players as far as, individuals, and there's a few little things that I like about their map pool, like in terms of the maps they like to go into, that I think, Passion USA are not a terrible pick here. I don't think they're going through, but I think they'll put on a better fight than Liquid, than Imperial. They've played better tactically. They have some solid individuals. They've shown us some decent stuff at past events with different iterations of this lineup, but the individuals, have themselves carried big matches. I'll take Passion USA just as my final underdog pick, but let's be real. This pick of the show is always the last gasp. Unless someone saved a tactical favorite slot, the final underdog pick is always the most desperate, the most dire. I'll take them. It's funny to me to not pick Liquid as well. Lads, make my case for me. Who loves Passion USA more than me?
Yeah.
Not all at once, either of us, clearly. I can't even really make an argument. They don't play shit Counter-Strike.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
They have a Ukrainian, so they're still UA. Holzerk is maybe off a fraud watch.
Damn.
What, off fraud watch?
Yeah, I think off. He's not...
Okay.
I wouldn't say he's been exceptional, but there are bigger frauds to fry. Holzerk's not up there. And Conven can be quite good, so that's it. They play a decent game. They can trade well, and their riflers haven't been giga shit. So
nice.
Love it. I love it.
I do think, just on realistically, if I had this pick, Do I have very little faith in Liquid? Yes. I would have picked them just because like that 1% chance that they somehow figure it out. But also, I do get what you mean, that it's quite funny not to pick them. I'm sure we'll talk about Liquid in a bit, but for now, Passion UA, they're kind of a frustrating team to me because I do think JT is a good caller and has been for a while. It's just, there's something about this core. Again, I guess Grim's quite good. I do like Grim, but like outside of him, I've never been overly impressed. I think Holzuk, there was a period where he was quite good, and now I just think he's the most like AWPer. Like he's just there, and I'm like, okay. And then Kvem, I want to like him. Like I feel like he makes good decisions a fair amount of the time. I have just seen him weirdly whiff like more kills than I expected at this tournament, and that's kind of a shame because like he slotted into the system actually surprisingly well, which I wasn't sure how that would work. I did think their train calling in that decider against M80 was actually fantastic. I think JT has a really good understanding of how to exploit opponents, especially. I think he's very good at like if he knows that the opponents have a weakness, I think he's very good at exploiting that. The problem is a lot of teams at this stage don't have those clear weaknesses to exploit, which is a bit of a shame. And then who else do you have? I mean, the other thing is obviously JT went 22-9 to carry them through that decider map. So like that's not going to be happening again. Let's be real.
It's just what he does. He's a fragging IGL. He's got the rep, man. He's got the rep.
They kind of almost feel a bit like I almost want to say like almost like a worse 3D Max in a sense, where I'm like, you have to do a lot tactically and you have to do a few tricks to win games, and then you're not going to be able to do that enough at this stage, right? Like, unfortunately, as much they're kind of like that plucky underdog. You want to do well, but you kind of know won't. That's kind of how I feel.
To be honest, I put them as a worse NIP. And yes, I understand that they're in stage 3, but they and NIP didn't make it, but they are, Train, Nuke, and JT's always loved their pass. Like, but those trains and those nukes, that's where I see the calling inflection.
Yeah.
Where a lot of other teams are just like, we'll play the flat sand maps, and we'll maybe be good at just nuke, and then trains a little bit washy, or I feel like they put a lot of time into these more tactically driven maps, and they're rewarded for it because they play well, and they actually have a very good read on what to do next. Where some teams are a little bit more information starved. So it's always been the positive about JT. I agree. His teams have not necessarily always had the firepower, or they've had maybe had a talented piece, but then make the person that makes bad decisions a lot of the time. This feels the most balanced that JT's had it, where Kvem can be a bit hit or miss, but no one's making terrible choices a lot of the time, outside of maybe a couple grim bozo deaths, but that will happen regardless of which team you're on, to be honest.
Yeah, sometimes the players who have to go make the plays take a risk that's just not the right risk. They get it wrong. It happens. So look, I've wanted this Passion UA. Actually, I want to make this pick with far more confidence. I just can't, because they haven't quite delivered on the theory that I had for them. In terms of, I have Kvem, I have Grim, Holzuk's, in this era of AWPers in contention for number 5. It's just that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, a chasm, then everyone else. So technically,
it's somehow number 5. We've established.
Yeah, sure, why not? But instead, we've seen a bit of an Kvem just be very hit and miss, and a lot of miss more than hit, unfortunately, which for a star rifle you don't like to see. So if they get it all right, they can go through this stage. That's definitely true. And they've got more ways of doing it. It's not just going to be the firepower. It is also going to be their calling, their map pool. They've got a lot of strengths. It's just that overall the roster it's a tier 1.5 team. Let's be real. Like, if your top end talent is Grim, you're not supposed to be the best team in the world. That's the simple reality of it. And that wraps up the picks. So yeah, I've put up a poll asking everyone who has the best picks. So you guys can cast your vote live and just make your choices. But let's also just talk about the Untouchables, the teams we haven't chosen. I think we should start with the favorite section. We have Mongols and Na'Vi. Which one of these were you guys most surprised, I guess, that no one else wanted? Or does it just make sense that these are the last two left over?
Probably Navi, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like realistically, Hawka should have probably picked him over
I reckon
G2.
you should have picked him over Spirit.
Yeah, well, I could have. I could have as well.
I regret nothing.
They're just a hard team to pin down. Like, they had a very good stage 2, obviously, but they've been inconsistent in other games and other events so far this year that it's kind of hard to put that much stock in them. You know, this is maybe the one great start we've seen from Navi maybe even this whole year, really. And it can be a little bit difficult to make the case because they play a different game, and also best of ones are probably the worst type of scenario for a team like Navi. You know, I'd put them attributed to like a gamer legion where there's like a little bit of prep, a little bit of tactical adjustment that they do going into these games that they don't get to do necessarily in the double best of ones day. So it's maybe why I would have avoided them, because Kaze's been okay. Imma's been Imma. Wonderful's been pretty good, to be honest. And the rest of the team just like everyone's Navi are sort of aggressively above mid. If we're gonna call teams aggressively mid, Navi have like somehow been able to stay above, keep their head above that mid line for a fair while, but I don't think they deserve much higher than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, like looking at stage 2, I feel like just the way Navi play and the whole system, I think is pretty well suited to beat a lot of these underdogs that aren't really used to that. And especially like I made the stupid mistake of thinking FlyQuest had a chance to upset Navi when, looking back, I realized FlyQuest try and play, you know, smart tactical CS. Against Navi, you're just going to get owned doing that. Like, let's be real. And then they got Imperial in the second BO1, which I think it was a much closer game. But like, I'm with you that yes, they won those BO1s, but in this stage, it's going to be harder for them. And then even in the 2-0 game, going against Bait, like if there was a team that would struggle against the Navi system, I kind of feel like Bait are it. Like, I think that's a really bad matchup for Bait. So I think I'm kind of with you on that. I also think Wonderful farm to this stage. I've as we've kind of alluded to, I don't really think he's that good, so I don't think we'll get that again. And then like Imma really wasn't that good at stage 2. Like he really wasn't. And
he has
then
one good
Makaze's
map,
like,
doesn't he? I think he has one good map in the entire 4 maps they play, and that's honestly, it's so classic Imma sometimes. I'm sure I haven't even got to it because I was watching it this morning. I was trying to get through Wonderful's POV on that first map, then Imma's on the second. I didn't get to it, but I know what I'm going to see, I swear. It's a Mirage. Imma gets a high rating. Yo, he's shooting so many people in the back. Like, I just know it.
And listen, you know, I talk all about the negatives, but Bit is fucking brilliant. So,
when he's on, he's... Oof.
And the games of Train that they played, bro, it's just, his aim was just so sharp. Like, he was deleting people before they had realistic chances to fight, and clawing them back into some rounds that they probably didn't deserve to win. But that's just, Bit was just honestly on it, which is, you know, promising for Navi because they, you know, the absence of a true star or whatever. If Bit can be that, at least on CT sides, then it gives them a massive buffer.
Yeah, I do just think people are getting I don't want to say fool's gold, but I think people are getting a little too overexcited about this 3-0 from the previous stage, where I'm like, yeah, that, you know, that they'll probably make it through as like one of the last teams if they do, which is kind of why maybe we don't pick them as one of the big favorites here, you know.
Yeah. As far as favorites go, probably not the most exciting. That's one of the big issues. You know, they haven't got a title win that's particularly worth believing, you know. So as much as stage 2 was an improvement, we'd need to see a lot more of it, and it needs to be more rigorously tested before everyone starts picking them over the likes of Spirit even. I mean, obviously Falcons, Furia and Vitality, no chance you're taking Navi over them right now. But even before we get to the rest of them, just kind of good but not quite consistent teams, we need to see a lot more from Navi before that point. The Mongols, obviously, Controllers isn't quite Senzu. Like, I've squinted, I've tried to apply like my granddad's brain to it, but I'm like, they're still not the same guy. Like, they're clearly different. Controllers doesn't play the same. They're trying really hard to set him up. Like, I've seen the game plan. It is Controllers to the max. If they've changed things up in this stage, like if they come to the major realizing this wasn't working, we want to win the major, and they put their point of emphasis on Techno, Mazinho, a combination of both, Do you think they can actually make a surprise run? Like, do either of you have that sort of belief?
First off, I don't necessarily see the same thing that you're seeing in that they're constantly trying to set up controllers properly. You know, the debut that they had with controllers, they were playing the most scrappy, pug-looking Counter-Strike I've ever seen. It was in the follow-up in Chengdu and Blast where maybe there was a couple more rounds where they were, setting him up for, good flashes or players sent out first. It's a little bit more structure, but yeah, I listen. They're cobbling together strategies. They're not necessarily playing the Mongols Counter-Strike that was transformative for a lot of these players. They don't understand where the role responsibility is going to divorce itself to. So yeah, it's hard to be an Asia CS fan right now. I'll be honest. Like there was a real uptick. Austin was a real high. More Asian teams at the major, and it's like they go 0-3, FlyQuest go 3-0, and then they go 0-3, and then it's like the Mongols were the one team that kept their head above water for a long time, and it's like now they're, they made a roster move they didn't necessarily want to make, essentially stepping away for personal reasons, which is grand, but not in the grand scheme of things for the Mongols as an organization with tournament aspirations. So yeah, listen, I don't think that that putting Techno back in the aggressive roles is going to fix things. I don't think Mizinho could ever do it. Blitz might have to try again. But when that didn't work, man, Blitz looked like, I understand he's stoic a lot of the times, but he looked dead inside some of the rounds that they were losing, where if he didn't get an entry, like seeing his team try to pick up the pieces, it didn't look great before. So yeah, confidence is at an all-time low for Asia Counter-Strike, unfortunately.
Well, you say it's not a good time to be an Asian CS fan, but one positive is Tyloo will surely finally get rid of Attacker, and we can we can give them another player that could.
The hot take is that Attacker is not the problem on that team.
Oh my goodness, I've baited him into talking about Asian CS. Attacker's numbers are garbage, though, bro.
They are. They absolutely are. But he's the only one that ever makes plays. Like
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Jam Young, when he is not on and just ripping people's heads off, passive player. Mercury, passive player. Mosea, passive player. G sometimes goes for aggressive things. I won't lie. G and Jam Young are supposed to be like effectively the tips of the spear. But when everybody is shutting down, Attacker is like the only guy that does things. Like especially on CT sides.
I see Mosea making some plays. I feel like, and when Jam Young's aim is good, I feel like I see it.
But Mosea only makes plays when everything is composed for him. Like, if you think about like an Inferno, for example, that only when they throw a barrage of util at Banana does he ever do anything. He's not actively looking for like a brawl or a scrap. They don't take timings on initiative. The only one that ever runs off of like internal timings and initiative is Attacker, and maybe he's a bit garbage at it. Like, I'm not saying necessarily like, yeah, okay. Listen, I'm not. I guess when I said Attacker's not the problem, it's effectively like what Attacker is doing is a positive for the team because there's a lot of absences elsewhere.
You more mean like bringing one player in for Attacker isn't going to solve it. Is what you think?
Well, okay. If they pull like Li Hang out of Rare Atom, that's probably an upgrade. I'll be completely frank. There are other pieces that exist in the Chinese ecosystem that would be an upgrade for him individually, but it's a mentality thing. Like there's, I think, problems for Tyloo making moves because I don't know. Again, it might just be like a trauma thing where it's like fear of failure. Oh fuck, I fucked up these timings before. There seems like there's no lethality to Tyloo, and it's a shame because G is sometimes the problem on this roster. He actually did good in the previous stage. It was the other pieces that didn't shine as bright. It's Jam Young versus the world, and then G joined his world, and there was still just this void beneath them.
Yeah, let's get back on focus. We need to wrap this up. Let's quickly address it. The blue horse in the room, quite hard to overlook, despite all of us managing to. Liquid were an underdog, and we still managed to find 6 other reasons, 6 other choices, 6 other places to go that weren't Team Liquid. I know why I didn't pick them. I said I think it's kind of funny, but also just because backing up for my O3 pick in my pick 'em. Like, they're just going to flop. It feels right. You guys probably have some more analytical takes to share on the Liquid front. Why didn't we love them? I mean, so we got some picks in here, like the Pain pick, the 3D Max pick, some controversy.
There's some optimism around those picks.
There's a lot of optimism. Some wishful thinking, some might say.
I've said for a while, I think when I'm watching this team now, I actually just think, I think Shuhei can be a good in-game leader. I don't think it's for this team. I don't. The more I look at this team, Elige seemed to leave FaZe because he wants some structure. I feel like Nertz has done his best game under some structure. I think Naf is the same. And then Shuhei is like this super loose calling IGL. And I feel like you just see that when they play. And Nertz, for example, like he gets given freedom to do things. And the amount of times I see this guy do the wrong thing when he has to make a decision is wild to me. And I feel like it just doesn't work in this system. Like Elige, I want to see just entering and getting set up and knowing exactly where everything is. That's what Elige wants. That's not what this team does. They don't do that really any of the time. They do in theory, again, have the players where sometimes they will just win. And also the other thing is Ultimate kind of popped off to carry them through. But I was watching some of these games and I kind of just felt like Ultimate was getting given fights where I was like, okay, I mean, you're hitting your shots, yeah, but these guys are not doing anything to make it hard for you. And fair play to Ultimate for hitting his shots, because a lot of AWPers are struggling to do that in CS2. But I have to think at this stage that won't happen again. But yeah, I really didn't want it to be the case, because I think Shuhei can be a good in-game leader. Especially also with Flashy coming in as a coach. This is a team that is primed out to be a super structured team now. I just don't think Shuhei can be that in-game leader. I don't think it works. I think that's the big issue now, sadly.
Yeah, it's the fact that Ultimate overperformed that I almost have like zero confidence in Liquid, because without the extra output, life looked very difficult for Liquid. Like they're making a lot of like real late round, last minute calls, making some scrappy spacing on some of the takes they had on T sides. It just none of it looked very pretty. And it's a shame because everybody will say this. The caliber of players, Naf, Nertz, Elige, Ultimate sometimes, if it's like mid, fine. But just with those riflers, you should be able to win games. It's just, there is an absence of like set pieces for Liquid, but I think the teams are just falling so far out of meta. It's why I'm so critical of a lot of teams in general for calling, is set pieces can still be good. They just have to be a little bit more up-tempo. There still has to be like pressure somewhere else as well. We can't have like these all-in, let's wait the first 30 seconds of util and then throw the exec. That meta is dead and has died a long time ago. It's just the complete absence of set pieces that can claw you an advantage or like an early 3-on-3 on T sides is exactly what I want more out of teams. I just don't feel like Liquid have that, unfortunately. It's like I feel like Liquid aren't really a threat until you're against a team with less experience. Like that, the nervousness or the mistakes, again, are maybe akin to almost like a bait. Liquid will punish those mistakes, I think, more than maybe some of the other teams beneath them.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it, I think. We're not going to touch Imperial. Everyone else can do that for us in the actual games and show off why they weren't picked. Let's leave that to them. We're gonna wrap this up. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you're watching the VOD, leave a comment telling us your thoughts on the picks. Everyone who tuned in live, thank you very much. We broke 120 concurrents on this stream. Just goes to show, probably should have started doing these live a long time ago. Saves us a lot of effort and a lot of pain. But yeah, we'll see you for the playoff preview that will be coming after Stage 3 is concluded, with my final attempt to reverse the deficit that I have on Yumi. It'll be close. I'm sure it'll be tense. And we'll see you all then. Thank you, and bye-bye.